showed up.
Ready? Ready? Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Board of Supervisor meeting to order. The date is June 15th. The time is 6:34. I'm going to ask everyone to please stand. I'm going to ask Don Gakel, our assessor, to lead us in the pledge, and then please remain standing for an invocation. We have Imam Hamid Kaelo from the Islamic Center of Modesto to help us pray.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Dear Lord, we ask you for your blessings for our city, our county, our state, and our country. With the humility, we also ask for your guidance and to grant us tolerance and patience during these difficult times. O God, guide us to foster good working relationships where we can work together upon righteousness and piety and help one another. Please help us to live in security and peace with one another and grant us success in our businesses and good health of our families. We pray to you, God, to fill our hearts with mercy, sympathy, and understanding for one another. We thank you, God, for our diversity. We thank you, God, for our strong community bonds and connections that we have in our city. We ask you, God, to fulfill the need for those who are in poverty and ease the suffering for those who are in pain. Make our intentions sincere and guide our speech and actions with your wisdom. Amen.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Imam. Okay, we're going to move on to item 4. We have a presentation, Elder and Vulnerable Adult Abuse Awareness Day. Delilah Vasquez will be presenting with Jose Michael. Hi, Delilah.
Hello.
Long time no see.
It has been a while. Good evening, Chairman Chiesa, members of the board, CEO Hayes, and County Council Bose. My name is Delilah Vasquez, and I serve as the Assistant Director at the Community Services Agency. With me this evening is Jose Michel. Jose is our manager over our Adult Protective Services, and I want to thank him for preparing this presentation today. And I'd like to thank you for allowing us this opportunity to present information on elder abuse prevention, especially today on World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And with that, I'll pass it to Jose.
Jose, before you get started, I apologize for mispronouncing your last name, Michel.
Oh, thank you.
And I always say it, I should be wearing glasses, but I'm too vain, so I apologize.
No worries. Thank you so much. So thank you all, and good evening. Today marks the 16th commemoration of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. World Elder Abuse Awareness Day presents a wonderful opportunity for communities in the U.S. and all over the world, really, to promote a better understanding of abuse and neglect of older people, and to renew our commitment to a just society where we can all age with dignity and live free of abuse. Elder abuse is a critical health, social, and economic problem. Approximately 10% of adults 60 or older have experienced either physical abuse, psychological or verbal abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, or financial exploitation. Older Americans lose an estimated $2.9 billion a year because of financial exploitation. And in the most heartbreaking cases, it means the complete loss of life savings earned through decades of hard work. Elder abuse is also a serious public health issue. Survivors report higher rates of depression. This can lead to withdrawing from social interactions and self-blame, resulting in shame and silence that magnify these effects. Survivors also have higher rates of hospitalization at an estimated annual cost to our nation's healthcare system of $5.3 billion a year. And persons having experienced elder abuse are 3 times more likely to die prematurely than other older adults. And moreover, an 8-year longitudinal study of elder mistreatment showed an increased risk of negative health and mental health outcomes of the persons who had been abused in previous years. Now, all these figures, they point to why we should care. It's because elder abuse can happen to anybody. It could be our loved ones. It could be our neighbors. It could even be us. So on this slide, we see the percentage of elder abuse cases that Stanislaus County Adult Protective Services unit that we've gone out on over the last 3 fiscal years. And if you look at the pie chart, the biggest slice in that pie chart is a referral that doesn't involve a perpetrator. The largest category is that of self-neglect, which is about 1/3 of all of our cases. And that's followed by financial abuse, which is about 1/5 of all our referrals. So now, thinking about that, let's take a moment to imagine the next possible referral call based on previous real cases. So maybe our next referral is about an elder who's living alone, and he's having difficulty, he's driving around, and he's getting lost, and he's also been in automobile accidents. And this is because he may be living alone with dementia. Maybe our next referral is about an elder who's living alone, and what she has found is romance through an online scammer. And she believes she's in love, and so she's sending money to this scammer, even though she's never met them before, because she does believe they are in love. And maybe it involves a family member who's supposed to be caring for a bedbound loved one, but that family member caregiver is nowhere to be found, and that elder has been laying in his soiled bed for days without food. Now, in all of these scenarios, there are a couple of common denominators. Often when it's a referral of self-neglect, it usually means that that person may have a poor social network. And often when it's a referral of abuse of a perpetrator, it's often a loved one or a person that's a trusted individual. But in all of these cases, the person is socially isolated and disconnected from caring family or social service supports in the community. So research tells us that social isolation is one of the main risk factors of elder mistreatment. And clearly the pandemic exacerbated social isolation and loneliness for older adults. And that's especially true for those that are living in long-term care facilities. What it also did is it compounded the societal factors that increase the risk of abuse, things like caregiver shortages or just trouble accessing services. But just as we know that seclusion is a risk factor, research also tells us that social support, it's a preventative factor against elder mistreatment, and it's a protective factor against the health and mental health effects of victimization. So Stanislaus County is our home. And it's home to also about 548,000 residents. And of that total, 20% of the county population is 60 or older, or close to about 110,000 people. In Stanislaus County, 11.4% of persons 60 and older receive income less than 100% of the federal poverty level, which is approximately about $1,100 a month. That's for a single individual. And for a 2-person household, it's about $1,500 a month. And according to the Elder Economic Security Index, a senior living in Stanislaus County who rents their home and that person's also in good health, they need about $28,000 a year to meet their basic needs. But the average person living on Social Security benefits, they get $20,000 a year. So these gaps in the safety net for elders, it increases their risk to social isolation and financial hardship. And then the downstream consequences escalate the likelihood of older adults experiencing abuse. But it's not all, bad news. We have good news for seniors. At the state level, Assemblymember Arambula introduced AB 695 to this California legislature. AB 695 addresses the growing number of diverse older adults who need adult protective services, because what it does is it enhances the APS program in a number of ways. First, it expands the APS pilot Home Safe program, which is our housing program for our clients facing homelessness. It creates a long-term case management component for APS clients with cases that are a bit more complex. And the other great thing that it does is that it lowers the program criterion from the age of 65 to 60. So by expanding that eligibility to persons 60 and older, it will allow us to intervene earlier with aging adults before their situation reaches a crisis point. And the other great thing is that it aligns well with the Older American Act programs, because those programs, things like Meals on Wheels, the Senior Law Program, Caregiver Respite, the entry age for that is age 60. And then, also at the state level, the governor unveiled a master plan for aging. The master plan for aging outlines 5 bold goals. That's how they are officially called. And all 5 goals, you can make an argument that they're upstream interventions for elder abuse. Goal 1 is housing for all ages and stages. Goal 2 is health reimagined. Goal 3 is inclusion and equity, not isolation. Goal 4 is caregiving that works. And Goal 5 is affording aging. So along with the 5 goals, there are also 23 long-term strategies and more than 100 initiatives meant to launch within the next 2 years. And that also, this year, the MPA Local Playbook was put out, and it supplements the master plan, and it offers guidance for communities on how to enact their own local master plan for aging. My agency, the Community Services Agency, we've been working in conjunction with the Aging and Veteran Services Office and Healthy Aging Association. We've started meetings in order to get our plan up and running. But we don't have to wait for an assembly bill or the master plan in order to fight elder abuse. There are some things that we can all do right now. One is we can stay connected. The research is very clear. We really can't talk about elder abuse without talking about social isolation. Elders without strong social networks face a greater risk of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. But strong social supports have shown to be a preventative factor and a protective factor against elder abuse. So it's up to all of us to ensure that our communities are supporting and engaging older adults. And one simple way we can do this is just by staying in touch with the older adults in our community. We can start conversations with our neighbors. We can check in with family and friends. Or maybe we want to become a visitor through the Friendly Visitor Program at the Area Agency on Aging. Another thing we can do is we can learn about the signs of abuse. Things like unpaid bills, utilities that have been shut off, maybe large banking withdrawals that are not in the norm for a person. Maybe you see someone who's living alone and they have poor living conditions, and at one time they were very meticulous. Poor hygiene, or maybe there's unexplained bruising, especially to the face. All of these things could be red flags of maltreatment. And 3, we can advocate for elder abuse prevention. In a just world, we should have the opportunity to age well, and with programs and services like community centers, like public transportation and law enforcement, we should be able to fill the gaps in the older adult safety net. So the Community Services Agency would like to take this opportunity to thank you for allowing us to speak with you today on World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Myself and the 10 social workers which make up the Adult Protective Services Program are committed to eradicating elder abuse today and tomorrow, every day. So right now, we would like to welcome Joyce Gandelman from the Senior Advocacy Network and Leticia Reyes, who's our Adult Protective Services Supervisor, to accept the proclamations. They represent all of us who protect Stanislaus seniors and are working towards a healthy aging community. Thank you.
Oh, do you have my proclamation too? I know. There it is. Hi. We're going to go ahead and face this way, face the audience. So we have 2 resolutions, but first, Jose, you did a great job, because I think about child protective services and adult protective services. People think that children are the only vulnerable people, but that's just not the truth. Adults have the same thing. People try and take advantage of them. And then with COVID, something really bad came of COVID and social isolation, and that leads to depression and other issues. But the good side of COVID is that people talking to the neighbors, just checking in. I've seen more things, more social posts than ever. It reminds me of the 9/11 type era, where people are just checking in on your neighbor to make sure they're doing okay. And that's all it takes, because when you walk by someone and you smile at them and say hello, it has the potential to change their day. So Jose, you laid it out very nicely. It is extremely important that we do this. I recognize that the societies that are most successful really value the aged folks in their community, regardless of what it comes with. There's great wisdom and knowledge, and so when you value those folks, they tend to do better, and people live longer and live more fulfilling lives. So I absolutely love this, that we're taking this day and we're making it into something. We're raising awareness for the potential for elder abuse. And so on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, we do have a resolution. The resolution, I'm going to give you the first line and the last line, because there's a bunch in here. But whereas the Stanislaus County is home to approximately 125,000 residents, 60 and older, who enrich and strengthen our community by serving as leaders, mentors, volunteers, vital participating members of our community, and deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. couldn't say any more than that. Therefore, be it resolved that the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors does hereby proclaim June 15th, 2021 as Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Stanislaus County. Upon motion by Supervisor Withrow, seconded by Supervisor Buck-Condit, the foregoing resolution was unanimously adopted on the 25th day of May 2021. I'm going to give you an opportunity if you'd like to say something before I give you. Just thank you.
I would just like to say that we really need to educate, eliminate, and eradicate elder abuse in the world. But let's start here at home where we can really do something.
Thank you very much. Take a picture really quick. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jose. Thank you. And Delilah. Okay, now we're going to be moving on to item 5, an update related to 2019 novel coronavirus emergency. And I'm going to turn it over to Jody Hayes, but we have Dr. Wei Champagne and Mary Ann Lilly presenting.
Good evening, members of the board and members of the public who are here live with us in person or watching on our stream. Before we receive this update tonight, I just wanted to acknowledge that we have reached what I think is the major milestone that we've been looking forward to as a community and as a state related to our COVID emergency response. I particularly want to acknowledge on the very front end tonight the two individuals before you today, our Health Services Agency Director, Mary Ann Lilly Tengowski, as well as our Public Health Officer, Dr. Julie Wei Champagne. And these two leaders have been coming before the board going on about 14 or 15 months now on a very, very frequent basis. I did a rough count, and they have provided approximately 40 COVID updates to this board over that period of time. And that's just on top of the tremendous work that they've done over this last period of time. And I know that the updates have tampered down in terms of their length over the last few months or few weeks at least, for good reason. But I just wanted to express my personal appreciation for these this last 14 to 15 months of continuous updates and excellent information sharing for this board as well as the public. Going forward, we do expect that we'll do this on an as-needed basis. So you may not see it on every single board calendar, but I think after 40 or so updates, they've deserved a little break. So it's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. I'll go ahead and get started tonight. I'm going to start with some of the vaccine update for you. We are at about 53% vaccinated in our community. I've got numbers there on the right-hand side that show the fully vaccinated versus partially vaccinated, and that's about 418,000 doses that have been given out in our community. The next slide here is showing you the trend. Everyone's aware that it's going down, but we are still vaccinating almost every day. So there are still folks seeking out a vaccine. Just to update you on how we're doing, broken out in different ways. This is showing you where we are with from an age standpoint, and you know, those most vulnerable, the elderly population. We're doing really well. The next, we're showing you race and ethnicity, and this helps to guide more of the work that we're doing with access and communication to try to improve the vaccine coverage rates. This gives you a sense of how we're doing by city, and continues to increase in all parts of the county. I'm going kind of fast because I know you've seen these. This one I really want to spend just a little bit of time on because I'm really proud of this slide. That you know, that 143,074 doses that have been given through the really the county vaccine efforts and coordinating with all of the partners that you see on there. Sutter was just off the slide in the numbers, but that is, when I look at how many doses that we've been able to provide for the community, and this is not just about, I'm proud of Stanislaus Public Health Services Agency, but this represents support by your board. You've taken a lot of action, you've communicated, you have assisted and supported us. Strong leadership from the Chief Executive Officer, from Sheriff OES. We've had county council support, numerous county departments that have allowed us to borrow staff to help this effort. Our partners, the cities, the City of Modesto, Patterson, Oakdale, that offered their sites for our large community vaccine clinics, and they dedicated some staff to help. Stanislaus State, and now the schools. A lot of community-based organizations helped to support this effort. El Concilio, the list just goes on and on. So to me, this is really just a really great outcome of how the community came together to help protect the health of the community. So I'm just really pleased to point that out and to thank everyone for their support and effort. This is the current schedule this week for our vaccination events. There's over 20 on here. The one thing I wanted to point out, though, is that on this schedule there are only 2 events that were planned for outdoor, and the decision made was today that we won't be holding the 2 outdoor given the heat. So the one tomorrow at Crystal Creamery and the one Friday at Vintage Fair, those are coming off because they were outdoor. And this just to let the community, continue to tell the community where they can turn to find a vaccine, the My Turn website, or call our public health line, and we'll help get you connected to a vaccination. This is our testing site. I wanted to point out that the mobile testing schedule that you see there, we have been doing that for many, many months at various sites that change throughout the week. We're not doing that any longer because the testing volume, we just don't have the testing volume or that access. The demand isn't there for that. But there's still plenty, there's many sites available for ongoing testing. And now I'm going to turn it to Dr. Wei Champagne.
Hi, good evening. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the current situation and what we're looking at as we move forward. As we look at our epi curve that we have here with our blue confirmed cases and our green probable, which is antigen testing, you can see that we continue on a downward trend, which is just fantastic. I'm very happy with this epi curve. As I think you all recall, only the PCR tests are reflected in the case rates that the state puts out. So I like this curve because it also includes those antigen tests that don't get confirmed with a PCR. So you can really see the breadth of positive tests that we've been detecting in our county. For our hospitalizations and ICU, you can see they're staying stable with our hospitalizations in the 40s, right around 40, 41, 42. People in the ICU staying between 10 and 15, really, for the most part. What you see there at the end, that gap, is we just moved to not doing bed pulls for the hospitals on Saturdays and Sundays. So every week we're going to have gaps on the weekends because it's just not changing enough right now to ask hospitals to allocate staff to filling out this bed pull on Saturdays and Sundays. So we're going to have some gaps in the data, but we thought it was time to move to a weekday bed pulling for the hospitals. I did want to bring up, as our last weekly update, that we are still seeing some deaths. It has really decreased quite a bit lately, but still maybe 1 every 2 days from COVID-19. I did get a question today. Alameda apparently has been going through their deaths and making changes to the numbers. It said, from what I understand, that they were counting anybody who tested positive and died was being counted as a death, and they went through and reviewed them to make sure they were either caused by or there was some probability that COVID had something to do with the death. I'd like to say that we've done that since the very beginning. We've reviewed, we get hospital records. If they're in the hospital, we get everything we can. We've always reviewed every death to try to determine if COVID-19 was at least somewhere in the pathway of that death. And somehow causal or associated with it, not just someone who tested positive and happened to die in a car accident or something like that. So it has been difficult. We have been trying very hard to count deaths correctly. If you try to look at death certificates, we don't always agree because sometimes it's been put on the death certificate when they tested positive 4, 5, 6 months ago. So we don't necessarily always agree with death certificates, but we also have some that aren't on death certificates, so I have no idea actually how we compare. But I think there is a state database that just pulls death certificates, and I know our numbers don't match, but that's because we have really reviewed all our deaths to ensure that we are correctly counting. Here is our tier update. The state ran it one last time for today, and so our unadjusted case rate stayed at 4.6. You can see our percent positive is 2.4%, both overall and in our HPI quartile 1. And our test volume is still continuing to be above the state median, 239 per 100,000 per day. I'd like to point out that's about 1,300 tests every day as a 7-day average, knowing there's less on the weekend, so there's more in the weekday. We're still seeing significant testing in this county. So I'm pretty happy with the amount of testing we're getting right now to really determine, be able to see what's happening in our community with COVID-19. The seroprevalence, this is updated again. They update this every 2 weeks. So this is for adults only. It's looking at antibody tests that detect both immunity from disease and immunity from vaccine. And you can see nearly the entire state of California is in the 70 to 80% of all tests. The only difference is Northern California is only at 54.4. So we're sitting at 76.3, which should mean that 3 out of every 4 adults is actually protected from COVID-19 at this time, which is just fantastic news. I want to go a little bit into variants because we did put out a press release today. So here are the variants that we've been watching, and I added the trend in California. So the B117 alpha, the one first identified in the UK, is continuing to increase in California. It's about 60% of all genotyping that they see, so it is the dominant strain circulating right now. The B1351, or beta, as it's newly named, the one first identified in South Africa, is staying the same, and we've only identified 3 of those. P1, which is the one first identified in Brazil, now called Gamma, we've had 4, and it is increasing in the state. It's gone up to 4 to 5% of all isolates. And the B1427 and 429 epsilon are the West Coast variant first identified in California during the last winter surge, and that was the majority of our cases, but that is now continuing to decrease, and we haven't seen many lately. The variants of interest, well, unfortunately, CDC updated this yesterday after I made the slide, so sorry. What I want to point out is B1526, which is the East Coast variant, first identified in New York. We really haven't talked about that one. It's still listed as a variant of interest, but that is really increasing in California, and we have, in the last few weeks, been seeing almost that exclusively. As you can see, we went from not really seeing many to having 16 of those. And the other one, the B1617.2, CDC yesterday moved that from a variant of interest to a variant of concern. But I already made the slide, sorry. And we just were notified of our first one, and that press release went out this morning. That is the one that was first identified in India. It definitely is more transmissible. The worrisome part of Delta is that what they're finding in the UK right now, that's the dominant strain in the UK, what they're finding is that one vaccine dose isn't protecting them very well. It's only about 30% protective for a person. And so they're asking anyone who has not had their second dose yet to act as if they're unvaccinated. 2 doses are very protective against both disease and hospitalization. So I think this is a great time to start messaging that we're starting to see Delta in this county, and we really need people who may not have gotten their second dose to come back and get their second dose so that they are fully protected against this Delta variant. Okay, so I thought I would try to do my best to explain the Beyond the Blueprint and what took effect this morning at 12:01 a.m. So there's been a lot of rescinding of orders and rescinding of executive orders, and I can't possibly try to understand the 13 pages that the governor put out. But the state public health officer order, I understand. I put the link on there if anybody wants to go to it and look at it. There's basically 3 requirements listed as 1, 2, 3 in there. The guidance for face coverings must be followed. These are the only requirements right now. The guidance for mega events, and then the guidance for K through 12 schools and childcare, and portions of the K through 12 guidance from the day camps and other supervised youth activities. I did a screenshot from the guidance for day camps and other supervised youth activities, and these are the 4 items that it refers to the K through 12 guidance that must be followed for things like, any youth activities, the summer day camps, and all of those other supervised youth activities. So these are the requirements as put out. All the other guidance that was out for restaurants and for anything else, that's all gone. It's only recommendations at this time. It is no longer requirements. So I've been getting a lot of questions about that. Well, what about this one? It doesn't say gone, but they're gone. They're no longer under the order. That order was taken away. As we look at the masking, which was number 1 on their list, here's the link to the guidance for the face coverings. And I tried to put these into a table so people could understand, because I was getting confused on this. So this is the table for fully vaccinated people that took effect this morning. So public transit, that has come down from the federal government and from CDC, so they are requiring masking indoors and outdoors. CDC just changed that yesterday morning, did not require it outdoors, but that's not in the state public health order or the state public health guidance, so that may change, but right now it's required. Correctional facility, shelters, K through 12, as we discussed, required. Medical facilities required. Workplaces under CalOSHA. Right now, workplaces and employees, it's still required. Indoor and outdoor, according to the emergency temporary standards that are in place. CalOSHA is meeting on the 17th to vote on something that would allow fully vaccinated not to mask, I understand. And my understanding of the process, and I'm looking at county council, is that once CalOSHA votes, the governor will make an executive order, because it's the 10 days from the vote till it takes effect, going through the OAL, the Office of Administrative Law process. And so I think he's trying to line all the guidance earlier without that 10-day process for it becoming regulation. So that's my understanding of what's going on. So what they vote on the 17th, an executive order will come out, and hopefully all the guidance will be aligned. So the next one is those who are not fully vaccinated. And as we look at this, the only differences are in the last 2 rows. For workplace and employees, my understanding is indoor will still be required to be masked. It won't change from CalOSHA. And all others public are required indoors. Those are the only changes. Those are the only difference between fully vaccinated and not fully vaccinated. So I hope that's a little helpful for people to try to understand and navigate the new rules as far as I can understand them. Moving to the mega events with the link there, this is mega events defined as indoor greater than 5,000, outdoor greater than 10,000, and really the only requirement, and this is a screenshot right from the guidance, is that the vaccine verification and negative testing is required for indoor mega events. And that's really, other than following the face covering, which means unvaccinated will have to be masked indoors, but but not fully vaccinated, as long as they're attendees and not employees. So that's basically the guidance. That's the health officer order. Those are the only 3 things that are in effect as of right now. So I will move on to what we have in the county. We only have 2 public health orders in place, the orders for isolation and the orders for quarantine. The local health emergency declaration and the local emergency proclamation are still in place, and I know we're working to analyze the pros and cons of any changes to these. What does it mean to stop them? What does it get us to keep them going? So that's under analysis at this time. So I'm just going to close. This is my second to last slide. Today was a great day, right? I mean, we're so excited that we're opening up. Our county is in a great place. Everything is going really well. I look forward to the day that I, as a fully vaccinated person, can take off my mask in the workplace. I really would like to. But I do want to stress that the pandemic isn't over. It isn't over anywhere in the world, and it isn't over here. As long as it's spreading anyway, variants are emerging, which may make our vaccines not as effective. And even with only 75% of our adults immune, that's great, but our children, there's no vaccine for those under 12, so we're not going to reach herd immunity until we can start vaccinating our younger children. You just can't do that by the numbers. So is this virus going to be a seasonal virus? I don't know. Will it surge in the winter like flu? I don't know yet. I don't think we have that defined yet. So it's not over yet. There's still a lot of vaccinations to do. There's still a lot of work to be done, but we've made an incredible progress, and I think we should be all very pleased with where we are today. So, but I don't want people to think it's over. Sadly, I'm sorry, it's not quite yet. So, we will continue moving forward and working to protect the community. Thank you.
All right. Any questions for staff? That was a great ending. With 77% of our seniors vaccinated, that's a good number, and 50-some from 55 and above, but that's not enough. And in the end, you need to try and, convince folks that this is the right thing to do. And not everyone is going to get a shot, but I know there's a lot of people out there that would still take the vaccine, but just haven't had the opportunity, haven't seen it, maybe don't have the internet. Check us out on social media because we're always blasting it out. But that's truly the way that we're going to even ease the mask restrictions at schools and other places. So appreciate and glad this is the last update for a little while. I know that I think you'll be back sooner than you think, but hopefully, things are getting so good that you won't have to come back. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to move on to item 6, which is the public comment period. It's an opportunity to speak on any item that is not on today's posted agenda. I ask that you state your name for the record, keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. I do have one speaker card, and then after the speaker card, anyone that wants to come up can come up. And it's from Joe Lizarraga from Recology. Good evening, Joe. I know you bring good news.
Always.
Exciting news.
Good evening, Chairman and board members. As you know, Recology operates a compost facility on the west side. We're really proud to introduce some really outstanding young folks today. I was just chatting with them a little bit earlier. And, these folks have they've been studying from home for half a year. To stay that committed to your studies and still come out and do the types of things that they've done is just remarkable. So hats off to you guys. Several years ago, Recology, in an effort to reopen it, to deepen its roots in the county, developed and implemented a scholarship program rewarding those high school seniors that have impacted the ag community and are scholars and are looking to further their education in the field of agriculture. Tonight, I'm happy to introduce this year's recipients of Recology's Ag Scholarship recipients. From Patterson High School, Angelica Hernandez. She's been involved with FFA, raised and shown market lambs and rabbits. She's also plans on attending Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. From Enox High School, Embelek Rano. He has been involved in the FFA and horticulture group, will be attending UC Merced and transferring to Cornell in the future. From Davis High School, Elizabeth Juarez Gutierrez has been involved in the FFA, the county, and will be attending Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Yeah, it's a funny thing. These two young ladies met out there, and they're going to the same school and being part of the same program. So I guess they know somebody coming out right off the gate. From Turlock High School, Michael Alamo. He's been also involved in FFA and showing Holsteins in the fair. Michael will be attending MJC in the fall. Last but not least, from Gregory High School, Shayla Wilkerson. She has been involved in the FFA with the horse judging team. Shayla will be attending MJC in the fall. And these are Recology's 2021 Ag Scholarship Award recipients. Let's give them a great big hand.
Yeah.
What an accomplishment.
So we're going to come down there, and we're going to take a picture. The whole board's going to come down there, if that's okay?
You can take one more picture. Yep, one more. Wait, one more picture.
I'm also going to point out Rod Olson, who I think was the brainchild behind this whole scholarship deal. So thanks, Rod. Okay, that's it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Now would be a good time for you guys to bail if you want it.
It's a learning experience. Stay and learn.
Schoolwork, you always stick with it. Thanks. Thank you, guys. Okay. Anyone else for public comment?
Good evening. My name is Deborah Harper, and I'm here spontaneously again. I was all the way over on Orangeburg and McHenry when I had the magnet to come down here again. So my name is Deborah Harper, and I've been trying to reside in Modesto, California, peacefully and reasonably for years. And it's interesting that today is the Elder Abuse Day, because today I was kicked out of Walmart when I was peacefully and reasonably functioning, and I was kicked off the buses for the entire day when I was peacefully and reasonably functioning. So I mentioned Walmart because the the operations manager, Jenna, the operations manager, called the police on me when I'm in the restroom, didn't mention that I had to leave, didn't ask me to leave, and she was the operations manager, similar to the Stanislaus County Library Operations Manager, Tom, backing up a very over-enthusiastic security guard who falsified information. So it's been a very interesting month. Very recently, my purse was stolen. Somebody used scopolamine and hypnosis while I was sitting at a bus stop waiting for a bus. Stole my purse. They used scopolamine and hypnosis. I didn't recognize that it was gone, which is the dynamics of scopolamine and hypnosis, not a mental health symptom. It's, you sensed and felt that it was there, but when I went to use it, it was gone. Retraced my steps. It was from Sylvan and Coffee to Walmart, where I was kicked out today, where it went missing. So, I mean, it had to have been at one of the bus stops, but it was most likely at Sylvan and Oakdale. So prayerfully and respectfully, we can evolve quickly into standards that include not calling the police on somebody that's peacefully and functioning and not stealing a purse from somebody at a bus stop. It's escalated. I mean, I've had an unusual life experience. I have no memory, prayerfully and respectfully, and I could be talking to my children and exes without even knowing who they are. And that's awkward, and nobody's communicating to me who they are. And it's a very careful situation, so I'm cautious through most of everything I'm at, but things have escalated out of control after 60. And I am 63, going to be 64, and everything is just out of control right now. So I just pray that we can all peacefully coexist. Everyone fits and everyone functions, so we have to peacefully coexist, fit, and function. And the solution isn't kicking somebody out of the store. To me, that's just what I call everybody's using false information everywhere, just totally brazen false information. They're writing it down on paper. It's evidence now. And prayerfully and respectfully, I don't want to be doing all this, but I'm going to do it. So it's canned text, slave manipulation. I recently sent out a photo, I don't know how many people received it, of a young woman that I stayed at the shelter with when I first went to the shelter, because that's where my family thought I should go when things weren't going well. So they kicked me out and sent me to the mission, and that's just started a whole new ballpark of unusual life experience that didn't need to happen. But it's in God's plan, because I'm writing everything as it happens and it occurs in an accurate manner. People are ignoring that accurate information. They're glazing over it and they're going past it. And things just escalate and escalate and escalate. So before everything implodes everywhere, I pray that people can peacefully coexist with each other. There's something wrong, and I've actually been brave enough and prayerfully and respectfully enough to say, hey, something's clearly bothering you. Let's resolve it. You know, talk to a reasonable psychiatrist, not one that's enabling everything everywhere. You know, get things resolved so we can all peacefully and reasonably function, because there's less and less functioning each year that I've been in this county in my recent return since I think it was 97 I came back into town. Now, I didn't used to look like this when I came into town. All this has occurred, all the physical abnormalities and misshape has occurred since I moved back into town in 97. I'm not getting any resolution. I've been trying to peacefully and reasonably manage it, but like I've mentioned before, I cannot be modest about it anymore. I actually I need to assist with it. And it's not to stir up trouble. It's to diffuse, bridge, and stabilize continually. The writing, the ongoing efforts, and any attorney I might talk to is to diffuse, bridge, and stabilize, and I pray that we can do that this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Harper. Anyone else for public comment? We do not have any public comments that we received by email. So I'll close the public comment period, and I'll move on to the consent calendar. Is there any Board of Supervisors that would like to pull an item? Anyone in the item want to? Anyone in the?
I have B7.
B7. Okay, we're going to pull B7. Anyone in the audience want to comment on any items? Okay, so I'll bring it back. Minus B7. Can I have a motion?
I will make a motion to approve all consent calendar items with the exception of item B7.
Second? Second?
Second.
Second. There's a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Back to item B7, and I'm going to read it so the public. It's consideration for the approval of the fiscal year 2020-21 year-end budget adjustments for aging and veteran services, the auditor controller, clerk recorder, county operations district attorney, health services agency, information technology, central, parks and rec, sheriff, fiscal year 2020-2021, project savings carryover appropriations and related actions, and it does require a 4/5 vote. Okay, Supervisor Condit?
Yeah, thank you. It's page 8 of 10. It's in the sheriff's section, and it has to do with, I believe it's the 800 megahertz radio tower equipment. And it's probably a simple answer, but it's talking about the procurement of the towers, but the radio team is now moving in a different direction. What direction? Are we moving away from putting the towers up for the 800 megahertz, or is it something simple that...
Mickey, is that something you can answer?
Yeah, I'm going to ask either Angelica from our team or Mickey LeBrar from the Sheriff's Department's here as well, if you could come on down.
Good evening. Good evening.
The short answer is no, I don't have an answer for that. I wasn't prepared for that one. I was prepared for other things, but not that one, so. I know that we have been trying to do that as part of the upgrade system, so I don't have that information, but I can get that to you. I do
Yeah,
apologize.
and the other thing we could do actually is we can table this item while we do the proposed budget presentation, and then come back and take this item and provide you the explanation. It'll just take us a little time to gather our staff and make sure we've got the right information.
I appreciate that.
Yep, I think that's a great idea. We'll move on and we'll come back, and I have to be reminded by the clerk that we're coming back to visit B7 a little bit later. Okay. So, we're going to move on to, we have a public hearing today. Public hearing to consider the adoption of the recommended proposed budget for budget year 2021-2022, and all the related actions. I am going to turn it over to CEO Hayes, Patrice, Angelica, and Jewel will be presenting.
And good evening once again to the members of the board and the public who are with us this evening. I'm going to do a very quick kickoff of the discussion on our proposed budget. And joining me this evening is our Deputy Executive Officers, Angelica Ramos, as well as Jewel Bohr from the Chief Executive Office. And I also want to acknowledge that, as has become our tradition, we have invited several county departments here this evening to also participate in our presentation. We think it's very important for our county departments to lend a little more context to what some of the decisions are that are being made within the budget and what's actually happening out in the departments that provide services to our community. I think coming up before you on the screen is, we always like to kick off with a quote here. So I'm just going to go ahead and read our quote. It'll be coming up here pretty soon. But that is, there is a light at the end of every tunnel. Some tunnels just happen to be longer than others. You heard me talking about this tunnel that we've been in for the last 14 or 15 months. And it is very fortunate that today's budget presentation comes on the same day of these major milestones in our public health emergency. But as we're reminded by Dr. V, it's definitely not over. And I can tell you, as far as our accountants and our budget team is concerned, it's far from over when it comes to the COVID-19 emergency response. We still have lots of work to do with our departments. I want to recognize that the budget before you in the past, the proposed budget, may have been a very robust discussion around a lot of policy changes, a lot of service level changes and so forth. That is no longer our budget model. We have a 2-year budget model here in Stanislaus County, and today's budget comes to you essentially at the midpoint of a 2-year budget model. So we are implementing that model, and the team will provide you updates on the tweaks and changes that we want to make with the 2-year budget. But essentially, we do not have as many policy or service level changes in this budget as we may have had in prior year budgets. You will see more of that when we come before you in September. But it's actually a testament of how the 2-year budget model is operating within the organization and how well it may be serving our county departments as well. So I just want to thank the team that put this together. There's only a few folks who will be presenting today from the Chief Executive Office and several of our departments as well. But there is a whole host of individuals both in this building as well as in all of our county departments that work extremely hard to put together this type of a complex financial report. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Angelica and Joel.
Thank you very much, Jody. So, Angelica Ramos, Deputy Executive Officer from the CEO's office. And displaying now on your screen is a table identifying the county's budgeted appropriations, revenue, and use of fund balance and retained earnings for the 2020-2021 adopted final budget. That is there in the first column. The 21-22 spending plan shown in the next column, and adjustments to that spending plan which are being recommended today. And then the resulting 2021-22 proposed budget for comparison there in your last column. Using standard escalators, known funding and accounting for one-time costs to adjust to the 2021 adopted final budget, the 21-22 spending plan established in September 2020 totaled $1.5 billion, relying on $1.4 billion in estimated revenue and the use of $49.1 million in one-time funds to balance. The recommended adjustments to the spending plan increase appropriations by $6.2 million and estimated revenue by $16.1 million, reducing the reliance on fund balance and retained earnings by nearly $10 million. The resulting 21-22 proposed budget totals $1.5 billion and is funded with $1.4 billion in estimated revenue and $39.2 million in the use of fund balance and retained earnings. Here in the table displayed on your screen for comparison year over year, this chart identifies budgeted appropriations across all county funds since fiscal year 2015-2016 over on the far left. On average, the annual increase through fiscal year 2021 amounted to about 6.9% per year. However, the proposed budget will show you a decrease of about 4.2% from the previous year. That reduced level is the result of the lower spending plan, which was built again in early 2020 and excludes one-time funded projects in fiscal year 2021's final budget, and anticipated a significant reduction in statewide realignment funds due to the COVID-19 emergency. Therefore, departments right-sized appropriations to available funding. Since then, sales tax looks positive and will be updated along with appropriations in the fiscal year 21-22 final budget, which will be brought back to the Board of Supervisors in September. Similar to the previous screen, this chart depicts historical budgeted appropriations for the general fund only, showing a comparable steady increase in costs through fiscal year 2021, averaging 7.3% for fiscal year 15-16 through 2021. The 21-22 proposed budget figure decreased by 5% from the prior year due to the exclusion again of one-time funding and costs. Discretionary revenue. This revenue represents funds that are available for programs at the discretion of the Board of Supervisors, the majority of which is used to support public safety, government-related services, and to meet mandated match requirements that leverage revenue for federal and state-supported programs. The 21-22 recommended proposed budget includes discretionary revenue estimated at $241.3 million and was held at that projected spending plan level. These funds serve as a placeholder pending updates at final budget when adjustments are anticipated to account for actual growth in the assessment roll and to accommodate the most current sales tax receipts and trends. The chart on the screen identifies the actual annual discretionary revenue received from fiscal year 2011-2012 through fiscal year 19-20, along with projections for the current fiscal year alongside those identified in the spending plan and proposed budget for budget year 21-22. Actual annual revenue received through fiscal year 2019-2020 averaged 6.5% growth year over year. Current year projections are down 0.6% from the previous year, but will be updated to show year-end actuals when final budget comes to the board in September 2021. Discretionary revenue is tracked very closely throughout the fiscal year and adjusted accordingly to the latest receipts and trends as we bring budgets to the board. This depiction shows you our long-range model. Annual budget analysis is completed with attention to a multi-year look general fund long-range model, which provides guidance for financial decisions. The long-range model has been completed through budget year 25-26, and discretionary revenue is forecast to grow above the 2021 mid-year projection by approximately 0.5% in fiscal year 21-22, which will be adjusted at final budget to account for the COVID-19 recovery improvements in recent sales tax trends, with an overall forecast that reflects average annual growth of 2.5% for the next 4 budget years beginning in budget year 22-23. Annual base general fund costs are projected to grow by 3% annually beginning in budget year 22-23 through budget year 25-26. One-time funding solutions, including assignments and strategic use of reserves and adjustments in planned spending, will be used to balance the budget in future years. That peak you see there in third quarter, that third quarter is the peak on the line on this line graph. You can see the increase in both expenses and revenue, which represents the impact of COVID-19 costs, significant infusion of relief funds that benefited this long-range model through those state and federal relief funds. And as you can see in the chart on the screen, the 2 years on the left show actuals, actual revenue received. Actual revenue received is depicted with the white line labeled sources of funds. These exceed actual costs, which are depicted in burgundy in those 2 years. The current year and 21-22 proposed budget show equal funding of expenditures representing balanced budgets that rely on the budgeted use of one-time funds. Out years, post starting there in proposed budget and the 21-22 proposed budget, these show how the gap between expenditures, which again is the white line, and the sources of funding grow with each successive year, requiring planning and the use of one-time funding to bridge that difference. The 21-22 recommended proposed budget is organized by Board of Supervisors priority area, noted with the shortened name in bold here on your screen that corresponds to priority sections in the budget document as displayed on your screen. We have 3 department head speakers for you today who will be sharing information about their respective departments. We'll be hearing from Jennifer Hagee, the director of the University of California Cooperative Extension. Department is part of the Developing a Healthy Economy priority area. We will then hear from Sarah Denton, our county librarian, representing the priority of promoting first-rate learning. And lastly, we'll hear from Dan Wirtz, our director and purchasing agent for the General Services Agency, who represents the Delivering Efficient Public Services priority area. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Jennifer Hagee, who will join us here at the podium, and she will share some highlights related to the workings of our UC Cooperative Extension. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Chiesa, Supervisors Condit, Graywall, Withrow, and Condit, CEO Hayes, and County Council Bowes. It is my pleasure to be here tonight. Again, I am Jennifer Hagee. I am the Director of UC Cooperative Extension and also a farm advisor here in Stanislaus County. I'm excited for the opportunity to update you on the happenings of UC Cooperative Extension over the last year, but first as a reminder of the service that we provide to the county. UC Cooperative Extension is the local doorway to the resources of the University of California, and our mission is to deliver science to the citizens of Stanislaus County. Our farm advisors partner with farmers and ranchers to conduct applied research that answer key questions to the local farming community. We also administer the 4-H Youth Development Program and a Nutrition and Consumer Science Program, as well as the newly formed Master Gardener Program in Stanislaus County. So our first highlight, in the last year, we have actually increased our footprint of farm advisors in the county. So in November 2020, we welcomed an agronomy and weed management advisor to our staff roster, and we are currently recruiting for a small farms advisor. The small farms advisor will focus on small acreage specialty crops with a special focus on socially disadvantaged farmers in Stanislaus County. So adding those 2 advisors to our staff brings us to 9 farm advisors, as well as a 4-H advisor, which makes us one of the largest staffed academic counties in the entire state, which is a pretty cool thing. Our farm advisors are currently conducting more than 30 applied research projects in the county to support the continued economic viability of the ag industry in Stanislaus County. And we look forward to increasing our reach even more with the addition of these 2 additional advisors. Thank you. Our Master Gardener program continues to expand learning opportunities throughout the county, including a new partnership between our Master Gardener and Nutrition programs, which pictured here is our school demonstration garden for teacher, parent, and community member training. So our Master Gardener volunteers actually planned out the garden, procured the money to put their idea into motion, and will also maintain this garden throughout the different growing seasons. This garden will promote and encourage teachers and community members to establish their own learning gardens in schools and throughout the community. Also at the Ag Center, work has begun on the learning landscape gardens. So these gardens will promote reduced water use, including lawn replacement, pollinator and wildlife habitat, sensory gardens, vegetable gardens, home orchards, and more. Sorry. So we currently have 55 volunteers in the county, and we are excited to open our recruitment for our next class of Master Gardeners on July 1. So July 1 we'll start taking applications, so if anyone has any interest or just wants to know more about the program, feel free to call the office and talk to one of our volunteers or our Master Gardener coordinator. So with that, that was basically my highlights. Again, I'd like to thank the county for your continued cooperation with the University of California, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Where's your garden?
That one
Yeah.
is in actually the employee lot, so right outside where our parking lot is.
Okay.
But accessible, I mean, you can get there during open hours.
And do you have other ones? I didn't hear.
So the other ones are going to be all around the Ag Center. So they've started in the small area around our building, and then they're going to expand as they can get financial securements. Yeah.
What does it take to be a Master Gardener?
Oh, so good question. So Master Gardener, it's a really interesting program. So the Master Gardener volunteers actually pay to go through the program, and then once they've graduated, they turn around and then donate their time to the community. So it's a really good deal for the county and for UC. And we really appreciate our Master Gardener volunteers. They're fantastic and pictured there.
I remember the movie, I've told you this before, the movie called Being There. And it's a guy is a master gardener, and he ends up being president of the United States. So you never know.
I believe it. I believe it.
Just a little fun fact.
And send out your weed agronomist out to my place.
Sure, yeah. I'm sure he'd be happy to come out.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Awesome.
Any other questions for Jennifer? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. So now we're going to welcome Sarah Denton from our libraries up to the podium.
Good evening, Sarah.
Thank you very much. I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to talk to everybody this evening, although I feel like I just saw you. The mission of the Stanislaus County Library is to engage all members of the community and offer access to information, knowledge, and the tools for innovation and personal development. That's our mission. And we do that, very broadly speaking, through our 13 library locations, our pop-up libraries, our large print, AV, and downloadable media collections, and all of the programming that we provide through all of our various sites in locations in and outside of the library. But tonight, I want to focus on some of the ways that we've supported that mission this year. Despite our challenges, we've had some real successes. First, we've seen the completion of some very exciting capital projects. Can we get that first slide? Thank you. The Empire Library was dedicated just last week, and it was wonderful seeing all of you there. We really appreciate the support and seeing the value that the county places on our libraries. The new Empire Library is well situated adjacent to the Empire Pool and is already generating significant local excitement. We've been contacted by community partners who are interested in collaborating with us in the new space, and we've seen lots of new and familiar faces in just the last week. As an example, the first day we were open, one young man came in 4 times, bringing a different friend with him every time he came because he was so proud of the library. We love to see that. 8 weeks from now, we get to do it all again with the dedication of the renovated Turlock Library. The new Turlock Library is 60% larger than the original facility, contains expanded spaces for teens and children, and new features including a quiet reading room, a community room, and a makerspace. To say that this library has been long anticipated by the community is an understatement, and we are really looking forward to it being open and operational. In addition to our new facilities, we are nearing completion of the Modesto Library Makerspace. Providing educational quality experiences for children, teens, and adults outside of a traditional school setting supports the library's mission and is in keeping with this board's priority of promoting first-rate learning. It also supports the goals of the Stanislaus Cradle to Career Partnership, which we are active participants of and advocates for. This evening, I'm going to touch on our impacts in two educational areas: science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, or STEAM, and early childhood education. Next slide, please. The Stanislaus County Library has a history of providing STEAM resources and programming, and the Modesto and Turlock Makerspaces will provide the focus for an expansion of our STEAM programming for the library in the coming year. And we are ready for that expansion, as despite moving to curbside services earlier this year, we were actually able to increase the reach of our STEM activities. Knowing that our usual in-person programming would not be possible, last spring we pivoted to grab-and-go STEAM activity kits, virtual programs, and combination programs where families pick up materials and then participate in a program online using those materials that they've picked up. Since last June, we have distributed nearly 14,000 STEAM activity kits, reaching a far greater audience than we'd have been able to with our standard in-person programming model. Staff have also developed more advanced STEAM kits for checkout. These grant-funded kits consist of a learning tool like the Makey Makey programming kit you see in the image, related books and suggested activities, providing access to learning experiences that are outside the budgets of many families in Stanislaus County. The library has an even longer history of early childhood programming, extending back literally generations. When I tell people I work for the library, most people immediately share their memories of story time, often as a parent, but sometimes also their memories as a child. Story times form the core of our early learning services, and while they are lots of fun, they are also developmentally appropriate learning activities carefully designed to support early literacy. Through modeling and instruction, story times provide parents the information and skills needed to succeed as their children's first and best teacher. Prior to COVID, we provided more than a dozen story times per week for this age group. When we could no longer meet in groups, we knew we couldn't abandon this important work and shifted quickly to virtual story times. While we look forward to returning to in-person sessions, we're pleased to report that our virtual story times have proved very effective, with 9 out of 10 survey respondents indicating they had learned something they can share with their children and that they feel more confident helping their children to learn. To further support early learning from a distance, this year we introduced circulating Read to Me kits, and you'll see one of them there, which include books, a puppet, a music CD, a finger play book, and early literacy tips to bring the storytime experience home. We recently received a grant from the State Library to expand these kits, working with our partner Learning Quest to support new and struggling readers from kindergarten all the way up through the 3rd grade. This past year has required us to be flexible and innovative in order to provide services, and we will continue with this approach as we build on what we've learned this past year. I'd like to close with an invitation to the board and to all county residents to please visit your local library soon and see everything that we have to offer in person. Thank you, and I'll answer any questions.
Any questions of Librarian Denton? It's a good time to be the librarian right now. And I always have to pitch to the taxpayers of Stanislaus County for renewing Measure P, which is an 8-cent sales tax, which you can see our money is going to great causes, not only to building new libraries, but to expanding services. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. We will now be hearing from our General Services Agency Director and County Purchasing Agent, Dan Wertz.
Good evening, Dan.
Good evening. So, good evening, Chairman Chiesa, Supervisors, CEO Hayes, and Council Bowes. Dan Wertz, General Services Agency Director and Purchasing Agent. I have the pleasure of leading a diverse group of men and women that make up the General Services Agency, who behind the scenes, often unnoticed, provide a wide range of internal services to support and ensure the county departments can provide their services without interruptions to the residents and employees of Stanislaus County. The General Services Agency has two divisions. Our Administration Division consists of accounting, human resources, safety and training, purchasing, central services, our courier, mailroom, and salvage, and our fleet services. The Capital Facilities Division consists of American with Disabilities Act, capital projects, deferred maintenance, facility maintenance, which includes our custodians, our locksmith, and our maintenance engineers, and office building management for the 10th Street JPA, Joint Powers Authority, the 12th Street Office Building, and the Veterans Center. Purchasing annually processes 4,700 purchase orders. 750 contracts are negotiated, and 40 requests for proposals are handled. But most notably, through the last RFP for the Sheriff's new helicopter, we were able to save the county $245,000, or 11.3%. Central Services annually processes 1.3 million pieces of mail. Staff drives 70 miles per day to pick up and deliver mail throughout the county. And we generated $3,200 from sales of surplus county equipment. Central Services, on average, has 20.5 years of service for the members that make up that unit. And I do want to point out the picture in the second row on the left. Yes, that is an IMAC G3, manufactured in 1998 and 2003, that is currently still at County Salvage.
Has it got any value?
Not enough. If I could unlock it and get all the secrets to the county, maybe it would. Next slide. So fleet services. The county's fleet of vehicles has grown by 52%, from 850 vehicles in 2015-16 to 1,295 in the current fiscal year, while not increasing the number of mechanics, the size of the shop, or the number of mechanic bays. County vehicles drive over 5.5 million miles per year, and on average, we sell 44 vehicles at salvage, bringing in $124,000 to the county. The fleet equipment mechanics, on average, have 16 years of service. Next slide. Maintenance engineers and custodians. The maintenance engineers are responsible for 2.7 million square feet of county-owned and leased space in 112 locations. They process 5,800 work orders per year, and the facility maintenance staff, on average, have 10 years of service within the county. But our most experienced maintenance engineer has 31 years and will be retiring this beginning of July. And next slide. Okay, sorry, thanks, right there. The county custodial staff is responsible for cleaning 298,000 square feet of space in 21 locations. And the custodians, on average, have 12.5 years of service with the county. The item that the clerk passed to the board members, this document is located in the county's budget binder on page 297 and 298. It is a listing of projects that are in various stages of planning, design, or construction. And currently, there are 48 active projects for fiscal year 2021-2022. A few of these projects are the 10th Street JPA fire alarm panel replacement, the 10th Street occupancy study and updated space allocation, the Agriculture Commissioner's warehouse remodel, the Clerk Recorder office remodel, the GSA evaluation of facility maintenance and fleet services staffing and facilities, the GSA construction management software, the Health Services Agency public health new facility, the library, the old Empire Library demolition or reuse plan, the Parks Bonita Pool and park upgrades, Probation Blue Gum facility and parking lot upgrades, the Sheriff Indoor Firearms Range and Training Facility, the Public Safety Center, Support Services and Unit 1 HVAC replacements, and the Public Safety Center wastewater project. I want to thank you for the opportunity to highlight a few areas of the General Services Agency that are often go unnoticed until an HVAC stops working, a vehicle breaks down, or services are needed to be RFP'd, or equipment needs to be sent to salvage. I would like to invite each of the supervisors to schedule a visit to see fleet services, county salvage, the mailroom, or the Hackett and the scenic maintenance shops. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Any questions of Dan? I think that was a challenge. I'm in, for sure. I know we've met, but you're right, to take time to go in, because you're kind of like the electricity for the county. It doesn't operate without GSA and all the magnificent work you're doing. Dan, I know you've been in different capacities in the county, and you're doing a great job for us. So, all right.
I think I already have one scheduled, so I'm ahead of you.
All right.
Thanks, Buck. I appreciate that.
I'll be out.
So the person that's in the picture with the Mac is Jeff Solak, class of 1982. In my class, he was in high school. I say that about everyone, right? I went to school with everyone at Houston, but Jeff was in my class. All right. Thanks, Dan.
Okay. Thank you.
Manny's thinking, was I born then?
Yeah. Thank you to our presenters. Taking time to hear about the good works of our departments helps to provide context to the budget process and bring meaning to the adjustments recommended here today. So this chart displays the $1.5 billion 2021-2022 proposed budget by board priority, showing the percentage of the overall county budget devoted to each priority area. Departments in supporting community health account for the largest portion of the county budget, representing 50.6% of the overall appropriations. Those departments in the supporting strong and safe neighborhoods priority make up 19.9% of the budget, followed closely by those in the delivering efficient public services at 17.5%, with departments in delivering community infrastructure making up 9.4%. Lastly, those departments in the developing a healthy economy and promoting first-rate learning make up the remainder of the budget with 1.7% and 0.9% respectively. So departments in the supporting strong and safe neighborhoods include the district attorney, grand jury, integrated criminal justice information systems, probation, public defender, and sheriff. Appropriations in the proposed budget for this priority area total $290.4 million, which is an increase of $12.2 million, or 4.4% over that identified in the 2021-2022 spending plan. The increase is primarily attributed to adjustments in the Sheriff's Department, including the purchase of new and replacement vehicles, increases in court security salaries to right-size the budget consistent with the county court's MOU, and establishment of the AB 109 Emergency Communications Equipment and Infrastructure Grant and other grant budgets. Next, those departments in supporting community health include aging and veteran services, behavioral health and recovery services, child support, the Community Services Agency, and the Health Services Agency. The total budget for this priority area is $740.3 million, which is a decrease of $4.3 million, or 0.6% below that which was presented in the spending plan. The decrease is attributed to the budget adjustments that align operations with the newly approved organizational restructure plan for the behavioral health recovery services that prioritizes the provision of core treatment services sustainably into the future. In the priority area of developing a healthy economy, this is supported by the Agricultural Commissioner, University of California Cooperative Extension, and Workforce Development. Appropriations for this priority total $25.1 million, and this represents a small increase of $22,330 over that included in the spending plan. That budget adjustment is related to the addition of a Master Gardener position for the University of California Cooperative Extension. The library is the only department included in the Promoting First-Rate Learning a priority with a budget of $12.5 million and is equal to that identified in the spending plan. Departments in the Delivering Efficient Public Services priority include the Assessor, the Auditor Controller, the Board of Supervisors, the Chief Executive Office, Clerk Recorder, County Council, General Services Agency, Information Technology Central, and Treasurer Tax Collector, along with several administrative budgets. The budget for this priority totals $256.5 million, a $4.1 million increase over that noted in the spending plan. The increase is largely due to adjustments in administrative budgets, primarily for general fund contribution to other programs and mandated county match to provide additional support to the District Attorney's Violence Against Women grant, Behavioral Health Public Guardian, Clerk Recorder, Auditor Controller, Enterprise Resource Planning, and Public Works, Road and Bridge budgets. Those departments in the delivering community infrastructure include environmental resources, parks and recreation, planning and community development, and public works. The total budget for this priority is $137.8 million and represents a decrease of $5.8 million from that in the spending plan. The decrease is attributed to the elimination of the local transit system in the public works budget. Now I'll hand the rest of the presentation over to my partner here, Jewel.
Thank you, Angelica. So proposed budget adjustments to the spending plan have been grouped into 4 categories for the purpose of today's presentation. We have items under what we consider technical adjustments, approved restructures, aligned general fund support, and time-sensitive staffing changes. Technical adjustments are those that were not included in the spending plan when it was presented to the board with the 2020-2021 final budget last September, either by design or because they were not known at that time. Vehicles, IT needs, radios, equipment, and on-site improvements were not included in the spending plan as they are not procedurally recommended through our zero-based budgeting process for future years and are instead proposed as adjustments to the base budget during the annual budget process. Technical adjustments to appropriate federal and state revenue along with allocations for grants to approve ongoing costs and accounting entries used to bridge fiscal years represent adjustments needed to operationalize at the appropriate service level in the new year that were not known when the spending plan was originally established. Approved restructures is a category used to identify budget adjustments required to operationalize board-approved changes to departmental structures. These adjustments apply to changes in behavioral health and recovery services and Public Works Local Transit System Division. Aligned General Fund Support represents adjustments to BHRS Public Guardian, Clerk Recorder, Enterprise Resource Planning, Health Services Agency, and Public Works Road and Bridge to align with planned general fund support approved by the board in separate actions and identified county obligations. Time-sensitive staffing changes identify adjustments to the staffing allocation and department budgets to accommodate pressing staffing needs and recommendations resulting from studies performed in response to prior requests affecting the departments shown on screen. Technical adjustments for the 2021-2022 proposed budget include the following: the replacement of 27 and purchase of 5 new vehicles in the Sheriff's Office, the replacement of 3 vehicles for the District Attorney, and the replacement of 1 vehicle each in environmental resources and probation are recommended. Recommendations including IT needs such as the replacement of computers, laptops, monitors, scanners, printers, copiers, cell phones, audio conferencing equipment, and backup storage for probation, along with construction management software for General Services Agency capital facilities and Public Works Road and Bridge. Similarly, adjustments will allow probation to replace radios for sworn staff, mobile data terminals for officer vehicles, and upgrade a juvenile hall camera to improve staff safety. Recommendations also include increases to cover on-site improvements at the Environmental Resources Fink Road landfill. Additional funding from federal and state allocations require adjustments to appropriate these funds in probation, local community corrections. Increases in court salaries will be partially funded with additional 2011 realignment revenue, with the remainder relying on the use of fund balance. Several increases in district attorney budgets will accommodate grants to address elder abuse, gang violence, victim services, and violence against women. Increases associated with grant funding will benefit Sheriff, OES Fire Warden, and OES grants budgets to continue funding the Emergency Management Performance Grant Program, Community Power Resiliency Program, Pre-Disaster Mitigation, Emergency Communications Equipment and Infrastructure, Homeland Security, and flood emergency response activities. Several service level and staffing adjustments were approved throughout fiscal year 2020-2021 and after the 2021-2022 spending plan was established. Adjustments to accommodate these ongoing costs result in increases to public defender, auditor controller enterprise resource planning, county council, and general fund match to the district attorney. An accounting entry will increase estimated revenue in Fund 107 to account for unused CRF revenue. The associated appropriations will be rolled over into budget year 2021-2022 by the auditor as part of the year-end close process. Two departments received board approval in fiscal year 2020-2021 to adjust their organizational structure to become effective July 1, 2021. The following budget adjustments allow these departments to operationalize to the newly designed structures at the beginning of the fiscal year. Behavioral Health and Recovery Services performed an organizational review and developed a strategic plan for implementation in July, resulting in an overall net decrease of $4.4 million. In Public Works, the Local Transit System Division is being eliminated, incurring a reduction of $8.7 million. The general fund supports departments through mandated match requirements, authorized contributions, and direct support to general fund departments. There are several updates to levels of support being provided in the recommended proposed budget. As part of the restructured design and behavioral health and recovery services, the public guardian will receive an increase in general fund contributions of $2.5 million. The clerk recorder has for some years relied on the use of modernization trust funds to cover 30% of the recorder division's staffing costs. However, recent research, county council review, and comparisons with other counties has clarified an understanding that the purpose of the modernization funds is primarily to provide technology upgrades to the division, including equipment, software, and other material changes. Movement away from using modernization trust fund dollars to cover staffing will occur in a phased process, moving to 20% coverage of staffing costs in the proposed budget, increasing general fund support to the department by $363,933. Enterprise Resource Planning was established in the Auditor Controller's Department budget and will receive an additional $176,579 in general fund support to accommodate staffing costs to manage the project. Adjustments in Health Services Agency will more clearly align general fund support with mandates and identified needs in 3 budget units: clinics and ancillary services, indigent health care program, and public health. The net impact of these adjustments in general fund support results in a decrease of $6,572 for the department as a whole. Additional general fund support is recommended in the Public Works Road and Bridge Division to accommodate an alley crew to provide illegal dumping program services, including costs for 3 dedicated staff, operating supplies, landfill fees, and equipment. Staffing adjustments were limited in the proposed budget to those resulting from recommendations from previously requested studies and those needed to meet time-sensitive requirements. The following adjustments net to an allocation increase of 7 positions. 2 new block budgeted appraiser 1, 2, 3 positions are recommended to support the projected increase in workload required to perform assessments due to the passage of Proposition 19 this past November that changes the rules for tax assessment transfers, limiting tax benefits for certain transfers of property between family members, requiring reassessment of the transferred property. The Auditor Controller has identified a need for and previously requested a new Manager 1 position to support the department head as the administrative manager in budget development, human resources, and operations management, recommended as part of proposed budget. Additionally, alignment of staffing for the Enterprise Resource Planning, or ERP project, results in the addition of 1 new confidential assistant 4 to support the ERP manager, and the deletion of 1 time-limited block budgeted manager 1-2 as planned. The Community Services Agency will add 1 new block budgeted social worker supervisor 1-2 position for a special assignment to the State Child Welfare Services California Automated Response and Engagement System, or CWS CARES project. This project will last a minimum of 3 years with potential to extend to 5 years and will be completely funded through a contract with the California Department of Social Services effective July 1. The department will delete the position when the project is completed. One new staff services coordinator position is recommended to support emergency solutions grants along with various other grant programs in planning and community development. Included in the proposed budget is a recommendation to add one new crime analyst position to probation in alignment with the CCP plan to provide accurate analysis of crime trends, reports, and statistical data to the CARE 2.0 program. Finally, one new master gardener position requested by UC Cooperative Extension in a previous budget cycle will lead efforts to educating the residents on water conservation practices, xeriscaping, pest management, and healthy eating. Within each department section of the proposed budget document, staff have identified key challenges and opportunities for the coming budget year. Topics noted in multiple departments have been noted on the screen and include COVID-19 pandemic recovery efforts, Americans with Disabilities Act or ADA compliance issues, staffing challenges, particularly vacancies, ongoing funding concerns, facility and infrastructure needs, concerns surrounding housing and homelessness in the community, and impacts associated with new legislation. Departments will continue to track on these and many other challenges and opportunities, bringing forward to the board any recommendations and or needs for future budget cycles. The 2021-2022 recommended proposed budget incorporates funding for 4,529 allocated full-time positions. This represents a net increase in the allocation count of 2 positions over the 4,527 positions approved in the 2020-2021 third quarter financial report. Subsequently, the deletion of 5 positions due to the elimination of the Local Transit System Division in Public Works was approved by the board on April 27th and will become effective on July 1, 2021. Recommendations included in the proposed budget net to an increase of 7 positions, resulting in a total staffing allocation of 4,529. As a reminder, the county's 2021-2022 proposed budget can be accessed on the county's website at www.stancounty.com/budget. There are 7 recommendations before you this evening. 1, accept the 2021-2022 recommended proposed budget from the Chief Executive Officer. 2, conduct the scheduled public hearing to receive public comment and input on the proposed budget. 3, direct and approve any changes the Board of Supervisors chooses to make and then adopt the 2021-2022 proposed budget. 4, authorize the Chief Executive Officer and Auditor Controller to make any necessary technical adjustments required in order to implement the approved proposed budget. 5, amend the salary and position allocation resolution to reflect the recommended changes for the 2021-2022 recommended proposed budget as outlined in the staffing impact section of the agenda item and detailed in attachment 2, to be effective the start of the first full pay period following July 1, 2021, unless otherwise stated. 6, approve contracts or agreements listed in attachment 3 in cumulative amounts of $200,000 or greater since July 1, 2018. Authorize the General Services Agency Director, Purchasing Agent, or previously authorized department head to sign. And finally, 7, to direct the Chief Executive Officer to prepare the 2021-2022 recommended final budget for budget period 2020-2021, 2021-2022, too many twos in there, and set the public hearing for consideration on the final budget on September 21st, 2021. And that concludes our presentation of the proposed budget. Staff are available for any questions you may have.
Any questions of staff? Looking both ways? No? Okay, I'm going to go out to the public. Opportunity to comment.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Harper again. That was an awesome presentation. It's priceless to watch all of the efforts in any government structure, especially the county and the city. I used to work in government offices, so I'm familiar with the effort and am missing it tremendously. But my request now, at this moment, I've taken a beating from the county health agency and from the libraries. Prayerfully and respectfully, we have a lot of money flowing through here. It's an awesome setup. It's an awesome plan you come up with each year. And if you can just pray that somebody can get a handle on the internal negativity. I don't know. I don't want to be awkward on that. I mean, it's just awkward. You know, I peacefully and reasonably have functioned in healthcare environments and in the library, and that money is just going to waste. You're tossing it down, even with kicking one person out of healthcare or kicking that one person out of the library. It comes over and over and over. That money just goes, you know, that effort is just like missing. It's gone sideways. So I pray that we can stabilize that in this year, and thank you for every one of your efforts.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Any other comments? All right. We get back to the board for comments. You ready, Supervisor Withrow?
Okay. First, thank you guys again for all you do. Angelica and Patrice and Jewel and Jennifer and Sarah and Dan that all came up here too. Thank you guys all very much for what you do. I'm going to say what we always say, you know, that we have all had briefings on this individually, and all of us have had our input into this as the staff puts together these ideas, or they gather the ideas of all of this board for things that we think are concerns of ours, and they all get kind of built into this. This is the second year of a 2-year cycle, so it's a little different. Most of that input happened at the beginning, but we're always having to, you know, kind of bob and weave and change as things happen. And so anyway, just so we've all spent a lot of time looking at this and involved in this process up to this point. You know, things just continue to look better than what we think they're going to look like. We continue to have better updates and results from numbers compared to what we thought, but that's great because we're always planning for these downturns. We planned for these things to happen with COVID, and the revenues ended up not happening. The revenue ended up better than we thought. Better direction to go than to go out there and not expect that thing. So very proud of the way you guys prepare for these storms, and we put ourselves in positions to be able to handle it. This time with the COVID thing, the severity of the storm wasn't what we anticipated, but that was a good thing for all of us as we worked our way through this. So, and what that does by us planning for these things, again, I'm just bragging about you guys, is what I'm doing. You know, we plan for these things, and it eliminates those high, peaks and valleys. We somehow smooth these things out as we get through them, at least in the approach that we take with our budgets. So it very much helps us, and we hopefully easily are pleasantly surprised as we get there. So, you know, as we get funds, you know, the government's printing money right now, the federal government like crazy. State government isn't printing it, but they're getting the money from the feds and they're handing it out too. And but we don't just spend it, you know, just go hog wild and spend this money. And that's I know we take a slow, kind of methodical, planned approach with our fiscal policies. We've inherited that from our predecessors here at the board, and staff, same thing. That institutional knowledge, you guys continue on that tradition, which helps us get through these rough times, and as compared to just seeing this money and having it burn a hole in our pocket and getting out there and spending it. And so very much appreciate that. So we do the slow, like I said, methodical approach towards it, but we are also very agile. You guys are very agile, and we can move quickly if we have to. You know, and we looked at that one page here where we talked about approved restructures, BHRS. I mean, what we're doing there, totally restructured what we're doing there. And we did that very quickly when we had to, as we went very quickly from a surplus in there to heading towards a deficit, and we made a quick turn and corrected that. And so it seems very simple. Same thing with our transit here. We talk about the elimination of local transit budget and public works. That's a big deal. I mean, we're this regional transit authority that we're doing. We're combining across the county. And but we've been working on that for a few years, but we make that adjustment. Sounds real simple, just a couple lines here in the presentation, but a big deal. And very much appreciate what you guys are doing to get that. Same thing with staff changing. You know, we're able to do that quickly through this pandemic. We did what we had to do, move people around as quickly as we had to, and we make adjustments as we have to get through all that stuff. So anyway, very much appreciate the kind of approach that we take to planning, budgeting, our fiscal and conservativeness, and being good stewards of the taxpayers' money. That being said, I want to move on to something that I think I'd like for us to do, I think we need to do, and this is something that I've had in conversations with the sheriff, and it's regard to Salida and reopening a sheriff's substation in Salida. I'd like it if we could come back here in September at final budget with staff having some ideas and plans as far as how we can reopen that substation, sheriff's substation in Salida. You know, we look at around the county, we have Newman, a population of 11,300. Houston has about 7,500 people. Waterford, about 8,900 people. Each one of them have a either their own police station, own police in Newman, of course, and then our sheriff's substation or our sheriff, we contract with those cities of Houston and Waterford. And their population compared to Salida, which is a population of almost 15,000, has no substation there. We had it before. It was there prior to the recession, and we had to close it as a result of the recession, as we had to close and pull back a lot of services back in the day. But, you know, and that was right about the time that I had come on to be supervisor. At that point, it had just closed down. And so we had been working, looking at it for ways to try to redo this for a long time. At first, we had no money. Of course, that's where we were. There was no money. And then okay, the money started to come in, but then we had no personnel. We had nobody to staff the station with. And now we're at the point where we've got both the funds available again to do that and the personnel, you know, coming from our academies to do this. So I think it's time. I think the people of Salida have been patient a long time. And with the size of that town, it's time that we get a substation opened up back out there. And I would really appreciate if staff could look into that. Come final budget, we'll have our final numbers at that point. We can figure out a way to make that happen and really get the services that the people out there in Salida need and deserve and have been very patient for the last 10 years, waiting at least 10 years, waiting for that to happen. So anyway, very much happy with the budget, everything we're doing. We'd just like to see that substation come back to us with some sort of plan in September as to how we can do that. But thank you guys very much for the presentation.
Thank you. CEO?
Supervisor Withrow, thank you very much. First for the acknowledgement and I think a very thorough assessment of this budget process that goes in and all of the work that goes on to produce what you have before you today. I would like to acknowledge the request, I think, for us to take a hard look at what we can do to provide a better on-site public safety presence in the community of Salida. We had received some prior commentary from you on that same subject, and I do want you to at least know, or members of the public, that we've already gathered our department heads and started a conversation not just around the sheriff, but actually what does our presence for all county services look like in that particular community, and what are some ways in which we can come together and probably have a better footprint within the community of Salida. So we will we'll merge the specific request regarding the Sheriff's Department into that conversation and make sure that that's well represented. And I'll look forward to coming back to you with some options and plans for the entire board to consider.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? So I'll have just a few comments, and I so much appreciate Supervisor Withrow's comments about patience, and I know patience always runs thin. This reminds me of the Turlock Library. For 10 years I was asking for it, but it was really about paying off debt in other categories, and then the timing became right to do it, and I would agree the timing is right to look at that, a substation there. So the positive news in all of this budget, when I look at it, is that sales tax, both the sales tax and the Prop 172 sales tax are up. I think we're going to see a big bump for 1 year in Prop 172, and we know property tax values are up. That's the good news. The bad news is that property tax values are up and sales tax is up because the value of a car went from $20,000 to $22,000. I don't know if it's inflation or if it's the supply chain. I hear lots of things, but things are costing more money, so that in turn means you're paying more sales tax. It's an add-on. I think we're saying Measure L is running about $4 to $5 million ahead of last year, but the cost of oil and petroleum products is up almost proportionally between labor costs. So, the value might not be there, but again, it's a better trend than the opposite. Supervisor Withrow also touched on something about really the way we do our budgeting, and a 2-year budget cycle has been much easier than a year by year by year. The second year of it has been very smooth and a much easier outlook because you have your position allocations determined for 2 years, and that's really the cost driver. But we've maintained our staffing level now. I looked and we're up 13 positions from 2 years ago, but I would challenge you, because our book only has 3 years, but I bet if you looked back, we're to 2006 levels about. We're nowhere near our high, and that's with adding all the federal program paid, not discretionary paid, and there's a difference, and I look at it distinctly. When someone else is footing 90% of the bill or 80% of the bill, it's different than us footing 100% of the bill. And so we've been very judicious in our staffing. Conversely, I say this out loud, I know to the fellow board members, it's not our money, right? We're supposed to be providing services to the community, and when we have more money, we have to grow the organization and provide more services to the public. That is without a doubt. We're in labor negotiations with pretty much every, it's from the January 1st through now, so we know the costs are going to go up. We heard from Stan Sarah, pension costs are going up, although we are having a good year, so maybe we'll see that trend reverse. I know medical, we're doing really well on our medical costs, so the cost drivers seem to be fairly stable, and the revenue seems to be fairly stable. So I think we're in a really good position to, at least for the next year. And we have this model, long-range model, where we look out 5 years. And if I were to look 5 years from now what the model looked like, it's way off, right? But we adjust as we go, so you never really realize, but you have to have a target, or else you would either spend all your money or you'd save all your money. And we're trying to spend the amount of money that's coming into the county every year on services. So it's a tightrope, but fantastic budget team. The CEO leadership team, the budget team, I have the utmost respect for you, because we can only make good decisions when we have good information, and I firmly believe over and over and over again that we have the best information. So again, hats off to you. And to the county workers, this is, that your department heads are continually fighting for you. It is it's our job to, not our job, it's staff's job to determine what is necessary, how we're going to increase that service. But the department heads are continually bombarding us with requests, because there's always more service that can be provided. And it's just determining, the value of each one of those positions. So anyways, I appreciate everything. Great. And if there's no other comments, and I did open it up to the public, right? I did ask, yes, I did. And so now I'll ask for a motion.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve all staff recommendations.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. I still forgot about B7 either.
We can either do that now or after the next.
Do they have an answer? Yeah. Oh, you know what? We're going to go to B7 really quick. Let's take up B7. I think it'll just take a couple minutes.
Hello. Hi, Chairman Chiesa, members of the board, CEO Hayes and Council Bowes. Patrice Dietrich, Assistant Executive Officer. I want to thank Supervisor Condit for the question. The agenda item that we pulled, item B7, is a consideration and approval of a number of year-end budget adjustments for the year that we're closing on June 30th. So this is an accountant's dream agenda item because it is a series of accounting adjustments. And you zeroed in on communications, equipment, and infrastructure grants. This is a really important section of this agenda item. I know the Sheriff's Office and Office of Emergency Services have been working on this grant for some time. It is a $900,000 grant. The goal of the project is to improve clear communications, interoperability, and increased coverage for fire and public safety agencies throughout the county. Nothing is changing in that goal. The fire towers and the communication systems are not changing. What is changing, and the change in direction, was in the procurement. So it was determined that the size of the project was so significant that they wanted the assistance of a vendor to help them. And with that and improved technology, the equipment they're purchasing came under the fixed asset threshold. So we're moving the $907,300 out of a fixed asset account and into a contracts and communications equipment account. That is the best the accountant can do to describe the radio towers, but the department would happily join me in meeting with you or any of the board members later this week to talk about the project or to give an update to the full board at any time.
Patrice, thank you very much. That paints a very good picture for me. Thank you.
Okay. So, are you making a motion?
Make the motion to pass B7.
We have a motion?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Perfect. Thank you very much for looking that up so quickly. On to item 9, discussion item. Approval to adopt the Mental Health Services Act 3-year program and expenditure plan for the fiscal year 2020 through 23, annual updates for fiscal years 19, 20, and 2021. Early psychosis, learning healthcare network, and full-service partnerships, multi-county collaborative innovations projects, and to authorize expenditure of the Mental Health Services Act funds for innovation projects. And Ruben Imperial will be presenting.
All right, good evening, Chairman Chiesa, Board of Supervisors, CEO Hayes, and County Council Bowes. Good to see you all this evening. Ruben Imperial, the Director for Behavioral Health and Recovery Services. I'm here with our Chief Administrative and Fiscal Officer, Kara Angiano. I've been working on it. And to make matters worse, the new Chief Operations Officer is Kevin Payanavan. So, and he's here today, so we've got some. We're going to make it really difficult for you to pronounce our leadership names over the next few years. So, I'm here today to present on the Mental Health Services Act plan updates and innovation projects. So, Proposition 63. Otherwise, no, the Mental Health Services Act created a 1% tax income on more than $1 million to expand mental health services. It was designed to expand and transform California's behavioral health system to better serve individuals with and at risk of serious mental health issues and their families. MHSA addresses a broad continuum of prevention, early intervention, and treatment services needs and the necessary infrastructure, including technology and training that support the public's behavioral health system. To expend funds, the county must prepare a 3-year program and expenditure plan, gain approval of the plan through an annual stakeholder process, spend in accordance with the approved plan, and prepare and submit MHSA annual revenue and expenditure reports. Funding is not tied to demand for services. It's not guaranteed, and revenues can be volatile. On March 30th, 2021, the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors approved the Stanislaus County Behavioral Health and Recovery Services Strategic Plan that aligns program operations and services with sustainable funding to prioritize behavioral health treatment services to maximize the number of clients served and leverage federal and state funding, maintain compliance with network adequacy standards, and create efficiencies by standardizing team structures and consolidating administrative structures. The Board of Supervisors authorized the department to make necessary adjustments to contracted service levels, execute staffing reassignments, negotiate new agreements, and modify existing agreements as outlined in the Behavioral Health and Recovery Services Strategic Plan to support full implementation by July 1st, 2021. The board in that action also authorized the department to finalize the Mental Health Services Act 3-year program and expenditure plan for fiscal years 2021, 21-22, and 22-23 for board consideration that aligns program services with sustainable funding. Over the last year, the department completed the initial phase of the strategic planning process that prioritized resources to provide critical treatment services to those most in need. And I shared quite a bit of detail in our last time here, presenting on the focus on those with severe mental illness and children with serious emotional disturbance. At the same time, the Mental Health Services Act stakeholder process unfolded, provided the department the opportunity to inform the broader strategic plan with MHSA values and stakeholder input. We've also took substantive steps towards further developing an integrated system, aligning our core realignment funds and other funding streams with the interests and values of the Mental Health Services Act. As an agency and community partner, BHRS is committed to strengthening Stanislaus County's public mental health system across the spectrum of care, with our department, of course, prioritized and focused on those in most need. We are here today to request approval of the MHSA 3-year plan and the related actions. In March 2020, the governor implemented a mandatory stay-at-home order due to COVID-19. And although the department was amongst many public agencies to be considered essential and staff continue to provide treatment and other supportive services, large gatherings and in-person public meetings were restricted, which hindered the department's ability to convene the required community planning and local review process to develop the plan and update. In June 2020, the California Department of Health Care Services released Information Notice 20-040, which provided counties with guidance on the Assembly Bill 81 statutory requirements of Mental Health Services Act funds to address immediate needs during the COVID-19 public health emergency. This guidance also allowed counties to extend the effective time frame of currently approved plans or updates to include fiscal year 2021. The extension allowed BHRS to continue to operate programs and services reported in the fiscal year 1920 plan, revenue and expenditure report into the fiscal year 2021, and provided the submission of the plan and update prior to July 1st, 2021. Plans and updates are developed with feedback from the Mental Health Services Representative Stakeholder Steering Committee. The plan and update development process must also include a 30-day public review and comment period and a public hearing conducted at the Stanislaus County Behavioral Health Board. Information on the community planning and local review process can be found on pages 44 through 47, 240 to 243, 264 and 265, and pages 278 to 280 of the attached plan. As outlined in the BHRS strategic plan and approved by the Board of Supervisors, many programs will be concluded at the end of the fiscal year 2021. In order to align program and operations and services with sustainable funding to prioritize behavioral health treatment services for those most in need going forward. The list of these programs can be found on pages 12 and 13 of the attachment. Also outlined in the BHRS strategic plan, many new programs will be added in fiscal year 2022. The list of programs being added can be found on page 13 through 20 of the attached plan as well. These updates summarize what was new or different for each fiscal year reported, the challenges and strategies to mitigate them, and essential data and analysis that identifies not only demographics and outcomes, but also the connection to Mental Health Services Act regulations. data and outcomes for each program funded by MHSA in fiscal years 2018 and 2019 and 2019-2020 are found on pages 46 to 234 of the attached document. Now I'm going to be talking about some, in addition to the 3-year plan and the annual update, I'm going to be talking about some recommendations we are also making for innovation funding. Innovation is one of the 5 components of the Mental Health Services Act. It provides funds to evaluate new approaches in mental health. These projects are intended to contribute to learning and address unmet need, rather than having a primary focus on providing services. An innovation project should provide new knowledge to inform current and future mental health practices and approaches, and not merely replicate the practices or approaches of another community. Innovation projects are developed through input from community planning process and are reflective of unmet need identified by inclusive and diverse stakeholder input. Innovation funding makes it possible to try out new approaches, gather data, define and measure success of new approaches or practice, and this is important, without taking away funds from other necessary services. Since January 2010, Stanislaus County has conducted community planning for innovation funding that resulted in the development of 17 new projects to date. Stanislaus and other counties continuously must deal with the issue of innovation funding reverting due to the lengthy planning, approval, and implementation process, amongst other challenges. As the COVID-19 pandemic unfolded locally, the department realized that the selection, development, and implementation of innovation projects that normal community planning process was not viable. Stanislaus and other counties facing this issue were encouraged by the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission to explore alignment with innovation projects already approved by the Commission to reduce the approval process timeline. VHRS quickly identified that 2 multi-county collaborative innovation projects provided by the OAC aligned very well with the insights from the stakeholder input on the VHRS system as whole, and one aligned very well with VHRS efforts to create a more robust stakeholder process for future innovation proposals, and also aligned well with the board direction regarding the development of performance measures and outcomes for the department. VHRS will avoid innovation funding reversion by the timely approval and submission of the 2 proposed innovation projects. If these plans are not approved today, approximately, or actually $1,346,811 of innovation fundings will revert on June 30th, 2021. VHRS currently has an early psychosis intervention program, LifePath, operated by the Sierra Vista Child and Family Services, which serves adolescents ages 14 to 25 and their families who have either qualified as clinically high risk, prodromal, or have experienced a first episode of psychosis within the past year. As part of the Early Psychosis Learning Healthcare Network Collaborative, VHRS and LifePath program will benefit from the sharing and learning with multiple and diverse participating counties. The focus of the project is to encourage the use and have access to data, and that data would be available on demand for clients as well as staff, training and support for staff and clients and families on using the data throughout the treatment process, adhering to fidelity to evidence-based practice, and ultimately moving our early psychosis intervention programming to a measurement-based system. LifePath will also gain technical assistance, an effective early psychosis-specific data collection methodology, innovative treatment approaches, and a learning collaborative that will enhance the program's access to new research, clinical support, and solution-oriented ideas for early psychosis intervention program challenges. The project will also demonstrate the use of multi-level evaluation process, the evidence of the early psychosis program components associated with improved consumer-level outcomes, the potential differences in service utilization and costs of early psychosis intervention programs between programs that are following and adhering this evidence-based practice and using data in the way that this project proposes versus programs that are not doing that. The consumer, family, and early psychosis provider experience related to participation in the network will also be enhanced. BHRS's core treatment services for clients with the highest needs and experiencing negative outcomes often related to at-risk or currently homeless, incarceration, high rates of hospitalization, amongst others, is the focus of our second innovation project. I'm going to highlight just a few that I think are important to share with you tonight. One of the goals of the program or the project is to define and track priority outcomes. The data will assist in establishing a best practice approach to track, standardize, and apply measures consistently between counties and across programs for statewide consistency. One of the things that you've seen in previous Mental Health Services Act reports is our full service partnership data, and we've often shown you the impacts on incarceration, hospitalization, homelessness, so on and so forth. What this is going to do is going to provide us an opportunity to compare ourselves to other counties. Not only compare ourselves in terms of data, but we would have basically the same standard operating procedures in how that data is collected, how those services are provided, and have some real consistency so that we can compare ourselves to other communities. So I'm going to pass it to Kara, and she's going to conclude our presentation tonight.
Thank you very much, Ruben. So the programs and services described in the plan are funded with Mental Health Services Act, which leverages Medi-Cal federal financial participation and several other funding streams to maximize services that are provided to the community. To support all MHSA components and programs, $56 million in appropriations, $49.4 million in estimated revenue, and $6.6 million in the use of fund balance was included in the BHRS fiscal year 2021-2022 proposed budget, which you just approved. Detailed information on the various funding streams and the breakdown by components is shown in the tables on pages 32 through 48 of the attached report, if anybody feels like looking at that. There is no impact to county general fund. I'm going to go ahead and go through the staff recommendations. So they are: number 1, adopt the Mental Health Services Act 3-year program and expenditure plan for fiscal years 2020 through 2023, and annual updates for fiscal years 2019, 2020, and 2020-2021, reporting outcomes for fiscal years 2018, 2019, and 2019-2020, respectively. Boy, I feel Jules' pain with all those 20s in there. Yes. Number 2, adopt the Early Psychosis Learning Healthcare Network and Full Service Partnership Multi-County Collaborative Innovations projects and authorize expenditure of MHSA funds for innovations projects. Number 3, authorize the Behavioral Health Director or designee to sign the county compliance certification and submit the Mental Health Services Act 3-year program and expenditure plan for fiscal years 2020 to 2023, annual updates for fiscal years 2019-2020 and 2020-2021, Early Psychosis Learning Healthcare Network and Full Service Partnership Multi-County Collaborative Innovations projects to the Department of Healthcare Services and the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission. Number 4, and last one, authorize the Auditor Controller and the Behavioral Health Director or their respective designees to sign the Mental Health Services Act County Fiscal Accountability Certification, certifying that the fiscal requirements have been met. And so that concludes our presentation on the Mental Health Services Act, plan, updates, and the innovations projects. And staff are available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Looking.
I'll go really quick here.
Okay.
Sorry, Buck,
No,
did
go
you want?
ahead.
No, go ahead. You go. Sorry.
This may, I'm not an expert in mental health, so explain to me early psychosis. What are we looking at?
Yeah, so early psychosis in the context of this program is that the program, psychosis is a mental illness.
Right.
And it's the symptoms of mental illness. So often mental illnesses are manifested in either mood disorders or psychosis and things like that. So it's one of the mental health disorders. And what this program specializes is that when an individual experiences their first episode of psychosis, this program specializes in providing intensive services for the individual and their family. And the goal of the program is, and what research has shown, is if you provide those intensive services at the first onset or the first episode, that the outcomes are better over the long term for that individual and the family.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your report.
Thank you. Supervisor Withrow?
Just real quick, Ruben. First, thanks for the presentation. Very good. Thank you. The innovation funds, and tell me the 5% innovation used for innovation funds that we've talked about here a lot. Didn't it used to be very restrictive as far as what we could use the innovation funds for? Like it couldn't be for, and maybe I'm wrong, we couldn't use it if other counties were doing this program, we couldn't be doing the same program, or we couldn't pick up on that program. And now as a result of this, we're allowed, because of COVID or whatever, they allowed it. I think that's the point you were trying to make here. And I just remember we were always trying to figure out something innovative, but we'd find something, well, they're doing that over here. Sorry, you can't do that here. But why reinvent the wheel if there were successful, innovation programs going other places? So I think that's a good thing. And I think that's the point you were trying to make. So I just wanted to reinforce that.
No, they're not used to be restrictive. They're still restrictive.
Okay.
So, and the other thing is they want us to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
So this is the challenge with the funds. And, I think that these are funds that I think when we've got some planning and some real strategic thinking now within, I think, with our new strategic plan, I think now we're going to be able to use these funds in the way that would allow us as a community to use them in the way that they were meant to be, and that is to, for innovations. And, I'm really encouraged and look forward to engaging our community stakeholders in using these funds for those most in need in our community, especially in the areas for, our full service partnership populations and other, needs that we have in our community. So I think with this reprieve in time, us bringing these two proposals to the board, it's going to give us some time to get some sure footing and engage our stakeholders in a thorough process. We've connected with several other counties that are using their innovation planning funds in a way that is really giving them some solid recommendations and meeting real needs within their department, even with all these restrictions. So we do look forward to that process moving forward.
That's great. Yeah, like you said, we were able to use it for the community and get some results from this as compared in the past. We were just struggling to try to figure out some sort of thing that qualified for innovation. And yeah, so anyway, good, that's good stuff. So thank you very much, Kara. Thank you very much.
Okay. There's no more questions. We do have some speaker cards, and I'm going to start with Joe Lambert.
Hello.
Hi. Long time no see.
Long time no see. So let me introduce myself. I'm Joe Lambert, and I advocate with Rhonda and Linda and to get assisted outpatient treatment here in our county. And we fought very hard, and thanks to the Board of Supervisors, we were able to get that approved. Thank you. My sister was mentally ill, and I'll just get to the worst part of it since we're limited on time. When she was pregnant, she was walking down the center of the middle of Tully Road, a very busy road. And when the officer pulled her over, she said, "I want to kill myself and the baby because the baby's evil." She did not get a 72-hour hold. There are many stories that I have come across similar to that. So I'm here to support Ruben. Our programs are only as good as our leaders. And we finally have someone that looks at the serious mentally ill and looks at their illness and wants to help the illness, which in turn helps the person. He doesn't care if you're black or white or transgender or what, because serious mental illness doesn't care. Doesn't care if you're a woman, doesn't care if you're a male, doesn't care if you're transgender, doesn't care. It does not care. It doesn't care if you have a college education like my sister. It doesn't care if you have a college education and your mother works for the mental health facility and is a psychologist herself, which you think would give her an in to get the help for her her child. It does not care. But we finally have Board of Supervisors that care. And we have Ruben. And I really appreciate Ruben because it's too late for my sister because she died 3 weeks before her son's first birthday, which we are now raising, and he's 6, and he knows us as mom and dad. So it's too late for me, and we did not have hope, but I have hope in Ruben because he thinks outside the box. He is innovative. He is compassionate. I support his plan, and I hope that you guys will approve it as well. And he cares for all, and he's got a one-stop shop for people to get the help that they need. Ruben, thank you. Thank you for all that you do, because we just, we can't lose anymore. We cannot lose anymore. My sister, my mom's daughter, she cries every night. We just can't. We just can't. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joe. Next up, Rhonda Allen.
We wanted Linda to go first. She wrote a speech. So, my name is Rhonda Allen. I'm from Modesto, and I am a mental health advocate. And I have been involved advocating for Laura's Law, the assisted outpatient treatment program, which we now have adopted into our new budget, which we are very pleased about. And I have worked with some of you on this board to get that to happen, and I'm very grateful that we've made that progress. And I also am a stakeholder. I've been involved in the process, so I can verify that the community did have a chance to read this report and approve of it. And there's some good work that's been done on that. I think our department heads have worked so hard, and I'm sure you're aware how difficult the work of mental health is, and what they're trying to do, it really should be commended. Hey, they're saving you money even. But I also wanted to talk about the work of focus on the severely mentally ill and how much our community really needs that, and that we have in this budget the work towards that focus. And I really want to commend Ruben for establishing that focus. The most needy in our community that cannot help themselves, he is speaking for through this budget and the programs they want to utilize. So the fact that his heart is in this and he's committed to it, in my opinion, makes him an angel. And so I totally support what the Behavioral Health Department is doing with this plan, and I hope you certainly will approve of it. They're saving you money, remember.
Thank you very much. I just want to let you know, Linda, as I call you up, that if you want to speak in an order, you can just write 1, 2, and 3 on here. But next up, Linda Mayo.
Well, you guys who know me know I have to have it written down, so. Good evening. I know several of you, but some of you are new faces, so I'll reintroduce myself. I'm Linda Mayo. I'm a NAMI member, and I am the mother of twin daughters with schizophrenia and bipolar schizoaffective. I've been a mother dealing with this for 30-something years. I don't want to give my age away here, but and it's very difficult and painful for family members, and it's also very difficult for the people who are inflicted with this terrible illness. So the reason I'm here today, though, is I want to here to express my strong support and admiration of Ruben Imperial. I have been fighting for changes to our broken mental health system for several years. I worked towards implementing Laura's Law with my cohorts here, and I became a Mental Health Services Act stakeholder about 4 years ago. When I first started attending these meetings, there were many conversations that revolved around requests for MHSA resources to benefit a particular sector of people. And it concerned me that it was not indicated that these were people with SMI, serious mental illness. I'm using a shortcut here. Within the group they were advocating for. The MHSA statute specifically requires this funding to be used for SMI. After several meetings without one single mention of SMI, I became very exasperated. At some point, I became emboldened enough, and you guys know me, I had to get bold because I'm nervous all the time, enough to ask the question. You are talking about the people within this group who have SMI, right? You could have heard a pin drop. And then the wise leaders of Stanislaus County gave Ruben Imperial the director's position of our behavioral health department. From the very first meeting, Ruben used the term seriously mentally ill repeatedly. I can't tell you how much relief and gratitude I felt for having a director who was finally representative of what I believe to be the core requirement for MHSA funds. Not only was he handling a complete evaluation of our overall system of care, but he was also taking MHSA back to its roots. I think of him not as an angel, I think of him as Superman without the cape. He is working extremely hard to revamp our system of care in order to increase our success in its delivery. I have also seen him through the mental health services stakeholder meetings experience the resistance of change within the current system. His commitment to changing the focus to those most in need and elevating our SMI to the top of the priority list has given me a newfound hope and inspiration when I needed it most. I strongly believe his focus and direction can make a difference in the lives of the SMI and their families and give relief from the impact that SMI has had on our community. You may be hearing from naysayers, so I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate his leadership and that I strongly support Ruben. He has a special talent to organize and inspire people, and he has a compassion for those afflicted by this horrible disease. Thank you, Ruben. And I hope you guys will support him in every way. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we feel the same way about him. Anyone else? Public comment?
Good evening. My name is Deborah Harper. I used to work in a mental health clinic at the La Jolla VA a gazillion years ago, not to age anybody, and it was a priceless experience. I was a secretary. I have a very, very soft heart for the mental health department, and I cheer you on because it's tremendous to hear everybody talk tonight the way they are talking. I have to pray for a little bit of latitude. I don't know how to put it quite, but I have to talk about manipulation in multiple areas in my future and current state. I'm in the trenches managing things that aren't normal, and it has nothing to do with mental health. So I have to talk gently about those issues separate from mental health. When I talk about the manipulation, it's widespread in multiple areas. It's not directed to any providers specifically in the areas involved. Mental health can just be like a catch-all to manage or manipulate somebody's agenda. I've watched it and seen it for years and years and years and years. This is not to minimize any of the efforts in this county or anywhere else. There are people that are not perfect in any area, including mental health, in multiple areas. So it's just a refining process not to minimize any of mental health. And I think Mr. Condit was asking, what does a I could be wrong, but I'm not going to assume. What does a psychosis episode look like? And I was asking that myself when he was asking. It's like, what is a psychosis episode? Somebody that's having early psychosis or an episode, what does that look like? Are they mentally not able to think straight? Or what is that visualization when someone is having a psychotic episode? Can you describe that?
I'd like to call up one of our clinicians, our chief, actually our adult system of care chief, to come up and describe a little bit more about psychosis, if that's appropriate.
That would be great.
And I think you can finish your comments, and then I'll call Kevin up to talk a little bit more about psychosis.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. Okay, so what I'm about to do is, in the effort of diffuse, bridge, and stabilize, is get very specific in the future, in the current and future. Where I'm seeing throughout the community is totally misrepresentative of my mental health. People are trying to toss my situation into the mental health arena, and I'm trying to separate it without, like I said, without minimizing anything. I'm managing a lot of manipulation in a lot of areas. So I'm going to get assistance with managing that, and it's just priceless to see people, through anything and everything, stabilize things. And everybody's cheering you on, and it's just priceless to see. And I'm thankful that somebody's making an effort in this county because I'm here, and I pray that other people in other areas continue to improve the mental health environments also. And it's not a mystery. When you get to, it's like, I didn't know things when I started working in the MH department. It was an outpatient clinic, just as a secretary. It was just amazing to watch everybody work. And it's a necessary field, you know, if it's done the correct way. And I just pray that we can not minimize anywhere by using the manipulative factors in each environment. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call Kevin Payanavong up. He's our adult services chief, and he can share a little bit more. I think the questions was along the lines of what does psychosis look like. So thank you, Kevin.
That's what happens, Kevin, when you get a promotion. You're pulled right up here, see?
Thank you so much, Ruben. Good evening, Jody Hayes, Chairman Chisa, and Council both, Supervisors. So when someone's experiencing psychosis, they can experience what we call visual hallucinations. They can see things that are not really there. Or can experience auditory hallucinations where they can hear things. Sometimes command hallucinations, like telling them what to do, or telling someone's evil, or family member for food poison. So therefore they refuse to eat. So those are some of the experiences, and they also have an altered thought process, because their reality is not our reality. So basing on the experience the person exhibiting. So like I said, they can hear voices, they can see things that are not really there. So that's their reality. So it becomes really, the individual is really tormented by those experiences. So I appreciate our advocates up here advocating for mental health services, because it's much needed. So some of those psychosis can be brought on by maybe substance use disorder, could be substance induced. However, the serious mental illness like schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, they can experience hearing voices, seeing things, plus with mood component. So that's what we call schizoaffective disorder. They can hear voices, also have mood swings as well.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you.
Supervisor Withrow did mention Kevin has been our adult system of care chief, and he was just promoted to the chief operations officer. So congratulations. And I just want to say really quickly, thank you for the kind words. I really do appreciate them. And I would also like to say that as far as just in closing with the Mental Health Services Act, this is informed by, I'm not a licensed person, not a clinician or a psychiatrist or a doctor. But a lot of our thinking, or my thinking, and the work that we're doing that you're seeing here in the Mental Health Services Act and in our budget is driven by our great leadership team that we here have at BHRS, and for not just this last few years, but for several years, as I was there as the Adult System of Care Chief. They've really helped me form and shape the view of how we should be providing services to our community. So I want to thank them all here. They're here as well. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So thank you.
I just want to if I just could, just real quick, thank Rhonda and Linda and Joe for being here, and over the years, all the work you guys have done. And just by chance, I called Linda today. I had a client who had a family member who was in a crisis, and they actually needed some support as far as how to handle this. And I called Linda, can I give them your number? And she says, sure. And so I passed that on. So anyway, I very much appreciate all that you guys do for the community.
And I just echo my colleagues' appreciation to the advocates. Thank you for everything you're doing in our community to address these serious issues. You have every right to sing the praises of Mr. Imperial. He does a fantastic job, and he's well deserving of those praises. And I do believe in his model moving forward. I do think this is the correct model in addressing these serious issues. And he does have an outside-the-box approach that I appreciate. And I do believe that is what it's going to take to tackle these issues that we face in our community. So, Mr. Imperial, great job. Keep it up, and I look forward to continuing working with you and addressing this.
Thank you. Great.
If this were to pass, you owe them a celebratory glass of iced tea.
That's great. So you had said one word during your presentation, revision. And for the folks out there, that means that money potentially leaves the county and goes back to the state. And that's something that we can't have, because it's not from a lack of need in our community. It's just something we have to do. So I'm going to be very supportive of this. I think the conversation comes down, and we use acronyms all the time, but the county was doing a lot of work in the mild to moderate range, which are people with less acuity. And we heard, the serious mental illness, SMI, as you know it, and it's really an area that Ruben has been focusing more on. And there's other resources available, either through schools and our local partners, to try and help us in some of the lower acuity areas. And so I appreciate you've been an absolute breath of fresh air to your team. I know that nothing ever gets accomplished through one person, but we have a great department there, and I'll be very supportive of this. So with that, no more comments?
I move to approve agenda item 9.1.
We have a motion to approve 9.1.
Second.
Well, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion again carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay. I put all my paper away. I don't know how I do this. Okay, on to correspondence.
This board has received a letter from the California Wildlife Foundation, California Oaks Coalition regarding protecting oak habitat for biodiversity and fire resilience.
Refer to the Departments of Environmental Resources, Department of Emergency Services, Parks and Recreation, and Fish and Wildlife Committee.
This board has received the claims as noted on the agenda.
I think it's supposed to say refer to the Chief Executive Office, Risk Management Division. Okay. Are there any Board of Supervisor reports?
Let's have a quick report. Over the weekend, we had a community cleanup effort in Crow's Landing. It was a wonderful, wonderful day on the west side. I do want to specifically thank some of our county staff, Erica Ignacio, as well as my field representative, Russell Fowler, for doing a fantastic job in handling the logistics of the day. Also to the Newman Fire Department, Chief Bowen out there, the Crow's Landing Lions Club, as well as just regular citizens who pitched in and helped in all our volunteer efforts. We were out there for a number of hours. I myself was out there for a little over 5, and I am glad to say that we filled 7 large of the Burlati bins to the brim, and they were taken out to Fink Road. And of course, this effort was to try to decrease illegal dumpings in the community and around our rural communities. So it was a successful day, and hopefully we continue these efforts in our different county pockets.
Community pride. Thank you very much. Supervisor Condit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week I got to recognize and honor Coach Jennings, Coach Jeff Jennings, that coached varsity basketball at Riverbank High School for the last 25 years. He coached his last game, and we got to celebrate with a little certificate and some pizza at Pizza Plus in Riverbank, and recognize that 25 years of mentoring and teaching young men on the basketball court life lessons. And he's still teaching, but he's not coaching basketball anymore.
I think this is great. I follow you guys on Facebook, and I see this information, and you know, there's all these rules about liking and commenting, and so it's so funny. I think that is fantastic. The community cleanup with the fire department, and I just think that's great. And the coaches coached hundreds of kids, and you talk about
Probably
mentoring.
thousands.
Yeah. So I just want to report one thing. It's along the same line. And I always say when I go to some events you have to go to, some you want to go to, but very few of those events actually cross over where they're the same. One of them was Pastor Ernie Spears in Houston. He's been the pastor of the Assembly of God Church in Houston for 50 years of its 75 years of existence. And his wife is also Reverend. It's Reverend Ernie Spears. And he started the Houston Fruit Nut Festival. He is the person who gives the most time. The Spears family is synonymous with Houston, and it's the same type of thing. I went to it. There's this outpouring of love from the community for this gentleman. There were 9 pastors serving the first 25 years, and he's been there ever since. And again, no sign of retirement anytime soon. So congratulations to him. It was a great event.
Great. There's rules on Facebook as far as what we're supposed to
Yeah, no opinions.
Really?
Yeah, Brown Act, you
Okay,
know,
well,
that type of thing.
So you haven't had the training yet?
No, I'm not. I skipped that one. I'm just going to.
His wife is doing the training. Okay.
Can I just real quick,
Yes.
I want to thank Liz for being here. I know she wasn't supposed to be here tonight, and our prayers are with Liz, who lost her mom, and I know you weren't supposed to be here, but then someone else had to. I think Kelly had to not, and it's just the team effort. That's how things work here, just a team effort. Everybody seems to cover, step up when we need to, and again, our heartfelt prayers are with you and your family, Liz, and we appreciate you being here tonight. It's such a tough time. Thank you.
Very nice. Ditto. Legislative Fiscal Management Report, CEO Hayes.
Okay, so I'm going to try to go quick. Last week we had some good news. The House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee had released its big federal infrastructure bill, which includes $6.5 million for the county's old 7th Street Bridge and $12 million for the State Route 132 project. So we look forward to putting these funds to work, improve our roadways in the future. We clearly need more funding than that, but it was a step in the right direction. I also want to acknowledge that yesterday the state legislature passed the 21-22 state budget bill. So it's on its way to the governor, but we recognize there's still a lot of negotiation that'll probably occur between the governor and the legislature on what the final state budget looks like. I think many have characterized this as kind of a placeholder budget bill for now. I also want to just let you know that today we put out a letter to support Senator Caballero's rural broadband and DIVCA Reform Act, SB 28, which will help our counties address the digital divide experienced in many rural communities throughout the state. So there's a lot of activity on that throughout the state, and we have expressed our support. Last thing I want to do is we did have a little bit of news that occurred during the board meeting tonight, and I just wanted to let you know that we're experiencing a water challenge out in the community of Wesley right now, where we had some interruption of the water service, and I know Supervisor Condit's already mentioned that he's probably going to head out there after this meeting to check on things, but I just wanted to alert the board that in case you're hearing that we are experiencing some water infrastructure problems in the community of Wesley. We'll keep you updated as we learn more.
Make sure you report out on Facebook so we don't break any rules.
I'll like it.
Something. Oh, it was Congressman Harder is the one that actually introduced those bills. I want to make sure we get a shout out to him. It's not, the money's not in the bank, but we have an advocate who's working hard on our behalf. So if there's nothing else for the good of the order, this meeting is adjourned.